Chapter 1980. With a wave of his red sleeves, Lin Xian stood with his hands behind his back like a god of war. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At the same time, the 4 leaders of the Battle Wolf Gang led 300 elites and landed quickly. They surrounded Lin Xian. Behind them, more than 400,000 martial artists were watching. For a moment, the originally empty and quiet martial arts practice field became lively again. Such a big commotion naturally attracted the attention of the people in the Wang Mansion. When the people in the Wang Mansion found out that it was the Battle Wolf Gang that was causing trouble, they frowned. Some even threatened to suppress them. However, when the matter reached the ears of the moving Mountain General and Lihua General, the situation was different. When the 2 generals found out that it was a newcomer who wanted to challenge the entire Battle Wolf Gang, they were immediately interested. Then, they told the people in the Wang Mansion not to make a move. As long as the newcomer did not destroy the Wang Mansion, they would let him fight. In fact, 2 of the great generals even decided to watch from the shadows. Not only that, many people in the Wang Mansion also went because they were curious about who had the guts to challenge the entire Battle Wolf Gang. The moving Mountain General was also excited. His bronze eyes shone brightly. Which family's little doll is so daring? On the other side, Lihua General also narrowed his eyes. I wonder if he's a peerless genius or an idiot. If he's just playing to the gallery, then he deserves to be killed. If he can really fight against the Battle Wolf Gang, it's not impossible to recruit him. Now, the 2 of them were most concerned about whether Lin Xian could fight against the Battle Wolf Gang or if he was just playing to the gallery to attract everyone's attention. In the training field, Lin Xian faced the 4 leaders and 300 elites. He looked calm and fearless. As for the surrounding martial artists, they were whispering to each other, their faces filled with shock. Is this guy really going to fight against so many experts? Is he crazy? Who does he think he is? An almighty? I'm afraid that among the almighties, no one can do this. Those princes and princes should be able to do it too. But who is he? He's a peerless genius with a terrifying identity. How can this brat be compared to a prince? The crowd discussed animatedly. Most of them shook their heads and sneered. They believed that it was impossible for Lin Xian to resist. This is the grave you chose for yourself? The gang leader sneered. No matter where you run to, we won't let you go today. The second faction master's expression was also ferocious. The remaining 2 faction masters also snorted coldly. A fierce killing intent burst out from his eyes. Lin Xian sneered. Cut the crap, make your move. He didn't pull out the 9 Underworld Devil Sword because he didn't need to use it to deal with these people. When the members of the Battle Wolf Gang saw that Lin Xian was actually so arrogant, they immediately roared in anger. Soon after, the big gang leader gave the order, and 300 elite martial artists quickly charged at Lin Xian. Kill! The murderous aura of those people was like smoke signals connecting heaven and earth. Every single one of them was incomparably terrifying, like a god of death. So many people were charging forward, covering the sky and covering the earth. Their momentum was terrifying. Even the 100,000 spectators were trembling, their faces pale. Humph! Lin Xian snorted coldly, and a fierce light burst out from his eyes. Then his body swayed, and he completely disappeared into the void. Whoosh! In an instant, he appeared in front of the 2nd faction master and the 5th faction master. Then he quickly punched out the Armageddon Black Dragon Fist. Black aura surrounded his fists, and 2 dragon heads fiercely bombarded the 2 of them. Roar! Boom! A loud dragon roar sounded, and a destructive aura swept out in all directions. The void was instantly torn apart, and countless cracks appeared. A terrifying aura enveloped the entire martial arts practice field. It was as if a peerless divine dragon was looking down on the common people. The 2nd faction master and the 5th faction master had no power to resist at all. The 2 of them were hit by the black dragon heads. Then their bodies flew out like a kite with a broken string. Seeing this scene, the big gang leader and the other members of the Battle Wolf gang were all stunned, because they didn't believe that the other party was so powerful. If the other party had sent the fourth faction master flying with one punch, it was because of his speed and sneak attack. But now, under the siege of so many people, the other party was still able to easily injure the second faction master and the fifth faction master. This was definitely not a sneak attack. The 100,000 spectators were also stunned. In their opinion, the four faction masters led 300 elites to fight against a young man. This was definitely a one-sided massacre. They were afraid that the young man would be blasted into pieces in an instant. However, things went beyond their expectations. The young man was not killed, but the two faction masters of the Battle Wolf gang were directly sent flying. This scene deeply stimulated them. However, this was only the beginning. After the two faction masters were sent flying, the other 300 elites were also sent flying one by one. None of them could withstand Lin Xian's punch. What did I see? The Battle Wolf gang is being beaten up? F***CK, I must be in an illusion. Who can slap me? Slap, slap, slap. Many slaps were heard, and then everyone's cheeks turned red. However, they found that the scene in front of them was still continuing, and they were getting more and more shocked. How is this possible? Everyone stuttered because they could not accept this scene at all. Just half a day ago, they had seen a similar scene. That was during the preliminaries when 1,000 experts besieged the mountain-moving general. In the end, the mountain-moving general was like a mountain god, sending everyone flying. Only a few people could pass the test. The scene now was very similar to the previous scene. Lin Xian was like a god of war, shuttling through the 300 elites quickly. Every punch he threw out sent someone flying. It was because of the similarity that the crowd was even more shocked. One had to know that the mountain-moving general was an almighty and not an ordinary almighty. He was an extremely powerful almighty. Only then could he fight against 1,000 experts. However, the young man in front of them was at most a 6-star king. How could he fight against the 300 elites and the 4 faction masters of the Battle Wolf gang? However, no matter how shocked they were, this scene was really happening. Soon, more than 100 elites were sent flying or lying on the ground, unable to fight at all. As for the remaining 2 faction masters, they were sent flying as well. This was especially true when the great gang master was heavily injured and coughed up blood from a single punch. The remaining 100 or so elites all fled one after another, because they did not dare to continue fighting. Even the faction master and half of the elites were defeated. The remaining people were not a match at all. Therefore, they tried their best to escape. Humph! Lin Xian snorted coldly. Today's battle was a show for the people in the prince's mansion. At this time, how could he let go? Chapter 1981. Therefore, when he waved his fists, the shadows of dragons appeared. The sky was filled with the shadows of the black dragons. Along with his fists, the remaining 100 or so martial artists were sent flying in an instant. Blood splattered everywhere. Other than Lin Xian, no one else could stand up. Silence. Absolute silence. None of the 100,000 people in the martial arts practice field made a sound. They were all completely stunned. Not to mention these people. Even the experts in the prince's mansion were shocked. This guy actually managed to do it. General Li, whose handsome face was filled with shock. Beside him, the mountain-like moving mountain general's eyes lit up. He trembled with excitement. Genius. He's definitely a genius in battle. I didn't expect to meet such a genius. His strength is definitely not inferior to those princes. In front of the crowd, Ma Chao was trembling with excitement. He didn't expect to see such a scene. Previously, he was still worried about Lin Xian. He thought that Lin Xian was too arrogant to challenge the entire Battle Wolf gang alone. But now, it seemed that wasn't the case at all. Lin Xian had absolute confidence and strength to crush the Battle Wolf gang. Who exactly was he? Was he really an itinerant cultivator? Ma Chao was bewildered because he had never heard of an itinerant cultivator with such heaven-defying combat strength. Moreover, Lin Xian was only a young man in his 20s. The others also came back to their senses and looked at the scene in front of them. They were immediately amazed. Exclamations of surprise sounded, shattering the clouds in the sky. Then the sun shone on the ground and shone on the martial arts practice field. Lin Xian was bathed in sunlight like a god of war, stepping on more than 300 martial artists. At this moment, his majesty was deeply imprinted in the hearts of the 100,000 people. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At this moment, the sky suddenly fluctuated violently. Then the 100,000 martial artists raised their heads and looked at the sky. Then they exclaimed. That was because they realized that figures were descending from the sky like dark clouds. Of the two people in the front, one was as tall as a mountain and was filled with explosive power. The other was a 16 or 17-year-old young man. He had delicate features and looked like a fairy child. The aura of these two people was so strong that it suppressed everything. Moving Mountain General, leaving Fire General. Everyone was shocked. They did not expect that the two generals would actually come to the martial arts practice field. One could imagine how sensational this battle was. Behind the two generals, there were also dozens of elite experts from the king's mansion. At this moment, everyone looked at Lin Xian as if they were looking at a monster. Lin Xian smiled as he looked at the moving Mountain General and the leaving Fire General. He knew that he had achieved his goal. Since these two generals were here, it was obvious that these people had seen the previous battle. He believed that he could easily enter Valerian Palace with his strength. "Kid, what's your name?" General Li Hua asked in a deep voice. There was a strange flame in his eyes, as if it could burn everything in time. Frost appeared in Lin Xian's eyes, blocking the heat. Then he said, "Junior Lin Xian greets the two great generals." "Lin Xian?" General Li Hua muttered. His eyes flickered as if he was reminiscing. In the Taiyi dynasty, which young genius had this name? But after thinking for a while, he realized that there was none. Moving Mountain General on the side obviously did not think so much. He laughed, his sonorous voice echoing in the air. Then his enormous body walked out and looked at Lin Xian. "Kid, do you dare fight me?" "What? Moving Mountain General wants to fight this kid?" The 100,000 cultivators in the martial arts practice field were in an uproar. This was too shocking. The moving Mountain Great General was a mighty figure with terrifying strength. Although the kid in front of them had defeated the Battle Wolf gang's 300 elites and 4 gang leaders, it was still shocking. But they did not think that the kid in front of them could contend with moving Mountain General. Even Lin Xian was stunned. Could it be that the mountain-moving great general had seen through his true strength? But that shouldn't be. Although the combat strength he had displayed before was shocking, he had not fully displayed it. Moving Mountain General should not have seen through it. But even if he had seen through it, so what? His true combat strength had reached the level of a great expert. So in the next moment, Lin Xian nodded and said, "Sure." Wow. The crowd was shocked. They roared madly, and their voices resounded through the sky. This was because the battle between the moving Mountain General and the younger generation was already very shocking. But what shocked them even more was that the young man in front of them did not even blink and agreed without hesitation. What was he relying on? The news spread like a storm. Suddenly, the cultivators who had not rushed over were all moved and gathered there. In an instant, the number of people increased again and reached more than 200,000. Other than those who were in seclusion and did not come out, the rest of the people all came to the martial arts practice field. This scene was not much different from the one that had taken place during the selection. At this moment, more than 200,000 pairs of eyes were fixed on Lin Xian. They wanted to see through him, because they really did not understand where he got his confidence and reliance from. He's a young genius, disregarding everything else. Just his courage alone is enough to instantly kill the vast majority of people. An old man in the crowd sighed. Yeah, I've been here for 2 years, but I haven't entered the manor yet. And I heard that he successfully attracted the attention of 2 great generals after only 1 day. It's only a matter of time before he enters the manor. Is this the difference in talent? The difference between a peerless genius and an ordinary king? It's so huge. Everyone was envious. Ever since Valurium Manor had started recruiting, no one had ever attracted the attention of 2 great generals in a single day like Lin Xian, and he had even entered Valurium Manor. This was definitely a record that had been set, a legend that had been broken. In front of him, the mountain-moving great general was also stunned. He did not expect Lin Xian to agree so readily. Then he laughed loudly. Good kid, you're really my type. Don't worry, I won't bully you. I will suppress my cultivation to the level of a 6-star king and fight you on the same level. A battle of the same level. The crowd was even more shocked. This was definitely going to be an earth-shattering battle. Lin Xian's eyes also flashed. He did not expect Moving Mountain General to suppress his cultivation and fight him on the same level. But he could not ask for more. Moving Mountain General was definitely an elite among experts. Even if he suppressed his cultivation, his combat strength and experience were not something an ordinary 6-star king could compare to. He could probably kill a 6-star king instantly. Chapter 1982. However, Lin Xian was also someone who could instantly kill a 6-star king. Therefore, he had very few opponents. Now that he had met someone who was on par with him, he naturally wouldn't miss it. Boom! Seeing that Lin Xian had accepted the challenge, the Moving Mountain General laughed heartily. In the next moment, he stomped his foot on the ground, and the entire ground began to tremble rapidly. The members of the Battle Wolf gang on the ground were all sent flying. In an instant, the entire training ground became incomparably clean. The members of the Battle Wolf gang who were sent flying all screamed in agony. However, they didn't dare to resist. The Moving Mountain General was an extremely terrifying existence. If they angered him, he would probably kill all of them with a slap. Therefore, they could only grit their teeth and endure the pain as they quickly left and retreated into the crowd. Originally, they had planned to gather more people to take revenge on the other party. But now, it seemed like revenge was useless. The kid in front of them had caught the eye of the Moving Mountain General. No matter the outcome of this battle, the other party would definitely be famous in the Wong Mansion. Such a person would be valued by the Wong Mansion. No matter how strong the Battle Wolf gang was, they wouldn't dare to go against such a person. Therefore, they quickly fled with their tails between their legs. Boom! 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 As for the Moving Mountain General, he let out a furious roar as a khaki-colored light quickly appeared on his body. It intertwined in the air and formed a yellow chain that instantly bound his body before disappearing into his body. In the next moment, the Moving Mountain General's cultivation rapidly dropped from the almighty level to a 6-star king. He has indeed suppressed his cultivation. More than 200,000 people exclaimed. Lin Xian's eyes flickered. If that's the case, then I'll offend you. Since the other party had suppressed his cultivation, he would also go all out. In the next moment, 2 black dragons appeared on his body and coiled around his hands. A violent and destructive aura quickly surged out and shot into the sky. At this moment, Lin Xian's black hair fluttered in the wind, and his eyes were as sharp as a blade. However, he was like a demon king looking down on everyone. What a powerful, destructive aura! Kid, I didn't misjudge you. Take my punch. The Moving Mountain General laughed loudly and then punched out. Although he had suppressed his cultivation base to that of a 6-star king, the mountain-moving great general's strength was not something that anyone could withstand. This punch was absolutely terrifying as it directly shattered the void. The fist seemed to be made of gold as it arrived in front of Lin Xian. Ha! Lin Xian also let out a low roar and waved his fist. The black dragon's aura spread out from his body and transformed into a dragon head that instantly rushed out. Boom! Boom! The two collided, and a shocking sound rang out, causing the entire sky to shake. What? He actually managed to resist it? He wasn't sent flying? Heavens, is this true? Everyone cried out in surprise when they saw this scene. This was because Lin Xian wasn't sent flying by a single punch like the other kings. Instead, he was able to contend against the mountain-moving great general. This was inconceivable. It should be known that even if the moving mountain general suppressed his cultivation, he would still be able to instantly kill an ordinary 6-star king. But now, a young man was actually able to contend with the mountain-moving general. This was simply too shocking. Good lad, you're really strong. This fist technique of yours should be very unusual. But from now on, you'll have to be careful, the moving mountain general said loudly. His voice was like thunder. As soon as he finished speaking, his huge body suddenly grew in size. His originally huge arms doubled in size once again. Boom! This punch was enough to destroy everything. The power of this punch was simply too great. It had exceeded the previous ones. Hence, in an instant, the black dragon fist that Lin Xian had thrown out was directly shattered. Lin Xian was also forced to take a few steps back. The great dragon's sword soul transport station in his body destroyed the aftershock of the energy. Then, Lin Xian stopped moving. In the next moment, he opened his palms. On each of his fingers, there was an image of a dragon. Then he slapped forward. The huge black palm covered the sky, and the terrifying dragon roar filled the air. It filled the sky and enveloped the moving mountain general. Boom! The moving mountain general swung his fist and hit the huge black palm. Immediately, a muffled, thunder-like sound rang out. The two of them didn't stop attacking. Their fight was earth-shattering. Terrifying energy surged in all directions. Too strong, this lad is really too strong. He could actually compete with the moving mountain general in terms of strength. Yeah, it's too terrifying. Although the moving mountain general has suppressed his cultivation, his strength hasn't decreased by much. What kind of body constitution does this lad have? It's too terrifying. Could it be that he has one of the legendary, powerful body constitutions? I don't know, but his fist technique is too terrifying. That destructive aura makes me shudder. Discussions broke out one after another. It was obvious that everyone was shocked that Lin Xian was able to withstand so many blows from the mountain-moving general. Those from the Wang mansion were also shocked. Li Hu General also squinted his eyes and stared at the two figures in the field. The moving mountain general was even more surprised. Lad, I didn't expect you to be so strong that you can compete with me. But next, let's try out the superpower. As soon as he finished speaking, the moving mountain general's fist suddenly shone brightly. A golden light shot up into the sky and pierced through the void. Previously, it was only the strength of his physical body. Now it was not only the strength of his physical body, but also the power of his superpower. This frightening golden fist shook the void and blasted towards Lin Xian at high speed, making a violent trembling sound. The golden light made the hundreds of thousands of people unable to open their eyes. Ha! Lin Xian also shouted coldly. On his palm, not only was there a destructive aura like a black dragon, but there was also a layer of blue frost covering it. Freezing the void, it met the golden fist head-on. In the sky, the intense collision was like the sound of thunder shaking the entire sky. The two forces were like tidal waves, constantly colliding with each other. Fortunately, the Wang Mansion's martial arts practice field was a place that was specially used for battles. It could withstand a battle between almighties. Otherwise, the attack alone was more than enough to shatter everything here into pieces. Buzz! After the punch, the The moving mountain general's bell-like eyes shone brightly, forming rays of golden light. They were like balls of golden flames burning. Those sharp eyes made people unable to look directly at them. One could imagine how terrifying the moving mountain general was. Boom! 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 Suddenly, the moving mountain general's fist loosened and turned into a palm, pressing down from the sky. Mountains began to appear in his palm. This scene was too terrifying. Those mountains appeared in the void and were being dragged by the moving mountain general, pressing down rapidly. The sky was covered in darkness. Mountains stood tall and majestic, and there were even birds and beasts on top of them. It was as if they were real. What kind of superpower is this? Many people exclaimed. Chapter 1983. What superpower is that? Many people exclaimed. However, someone screamed, "Mountain palm! It's the mountain palm!" The mountain palm was a terrifying palm technique. When the palm was thrown out, it was as though a real mountain had appeared in the sky. It was so oppressive that the crowd couldn't breathe. This palm was too terrifying. The mountains and the sky were earth-shattering, and Lin Xian was enveloped in an instant. Whoosh! Lin Xian looked solemn. He took a deep breath, and the great dragon sword soul in his body quickly rotated. Then mysterious sword runes appeared under his feet and quickly spread out in all directions. The entire martial arts practice field formed a mysterious sword array. Then, blood-red sword Qi gathered in the sword array and quickly slashed towards the sky. It was as though it could destroy everything. The blood-red sword Qi was vast and mighty like rivers of blood. It carried a monstrous, murderous aura. Clang! 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 The blood-red sword Qi rushed out and collided with the mountains in the sky. The terrifying sound tore through the void, causing more than 200,000 people to feel a piercing pain in their ears. Many people even fainted on the spot. The superpowers of the two were too terrifying. Whether it was the mountain palm or the demon-slaying sword, they were both extremely terrifying superpowers. The moment they appeared, the weather changed. Buzz! The void trembled. A snow-covered mountain that was thousands of feet tall was being dragged by the mountain general. It seemed to be cutting through time and space as it quickly pressed down. Boom! Behind Lin Xian, a huge blood-red sword Qi gathered and formed a blood-red dragon that was baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. The terrifying dragon claws grabbed the void and met the attack. Crack! 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 The dragon claws cracked the mountain. However, the huge rocks on top of it also shattered the sword Qi dragon claws. This intense battle left the 200,000 over martial artists extremely shocked. Even the people from the Wang Mansion were staring with their eyes wide open. They couldn't believe that a young man could hold his own against the mountain-moving general for so long. "Kid, you're amazing. Take my last move. If you can take it, I'll let you enter the Wang Mansion." With that, the mountain-moving general kept waving his palms. Suddenly, 13 huge mountain peaks appeared in the sky, one after another, as if they were demonic peaks that reached the heavens. They filled the void. Immediately, the entire sky darkened. It was as if the 13 mountains in the sky would descend at any moment. A vast aura that could crush the heavens and earth quickly spread out in all directions. That aura was simply too sharp. It could definitely suppress everything in the world. Lin Xian's expression was extremely solemn as well, because the 13,000-meter-tall mountains posed a huge threat to him. Therefore, in the next moment, he roared. The demon-slaying sword formation under his feet quickly intertwined and formed 9 gigantic black tortoises that soared into the sky. Divine tortoise-carrying mountains. 9 huge black tortoises, completely condensed from sword Qi and full of spiritual power, rushed into the sky like real divine beasts. They let out loud and clear roars. Then the 9 divine turtles lifted the 13 demonic mountains in the sky. Boom! Boom! The sound of violent collisions rang out, and every one of them made people's hearts jump. He actually wanted to completely hold back the 13 huge mountains. Everyone was shocked by this scene, because the best way to resist this move was to dodge quickly or find a weak point and attack with all his might. But now, Lin Xian wanted to forcefully hold back the 13 huge mountains. This was definitely the most difficult and unrewarding method. The mountain-moving general was also stunned. Then he shook his head. Impossible. You can't possibly hold back my 13 mountains. He did not believe that Lin Xian could hold back his 13 mountains. However, in the next moment he was stunned, because in the sky, the 9 huge black tortoises were roaring crazily. Their bodies were shining brightly. In the end, they actually managed to hold back the 13 mountains in the sky. Otherwise, they would have dragged the 13 mountains into the sky and disappeared into the void. What? He really did it. What kind of superpower is that? It's too scary. He can actually resist the mountain-moving general's mountain palm. That kid really did it. The mountain-moving general's eyes flickered. Then he retracted his aura. He had said that the 13 mountains would be his last move. If his opponent could withstand it, then he would not attack again. Kid, you're very strong. You've exceeded my expectations. The mountain-moving general looked at Lin Xian and said in a low voice, I will keep my promise and recruit you into Valyria Manor. The 200,000 cultivators were in an uproar when they heard this. Then they all looked at Lin Xian with burning eyes. Entering the Valyrian palace was something they'd always dreamed of. It was also the reason for their visit. However, some of them had been here for several years and had yet to enter. And yet a young man had successfully entered Valyria Manor on the first day. This kind of heaven-defying speed made everyone envious. But there was nothing they could do. They had seen with their own eyes how strong the young man was. He was able to fight the mountain-moving general to a standstill even with his cultivation suppressed. Even if he did not enter now, he would be able to do so the next time. Therefore, they could only be envious. By Qianqi, the mountain-moving general shouted coldly, This subordinate is here. At this moment, a middle-aged man in white robes stepped forward. He was very respectful. Arrange for this child to be sent to your golden sword peak. Yes, the middle-aged man in white robes quickly responded. Then he looked at Lin Xian. From now on, you are a member of Valyria Manor's Golden Sword Peak. Golden Sword Peak? What's that? Lin Xian was very confused. He didn't know much about Valyria Manor at all. Valyria Manor isn't just a simple manor. It also governs an endless territory. There are 5 branches under Valyria Manor. Golden Sword Peak is one of them. Those who pass the selection will be randomly assigned to one of the 5 branches. You will follow me to Golden Sword Peak. So that's how it is. Lin Xian nodded to show that he understood. Then he said, Then I'll have to trouble you, Senior. Although Lin Xian's performance during the battle with Moving Mountain was extremely domineering and looked down on the world, but now he didn't seem arrogant at all. The middle-aged man in white robes breathed a sigh of relief when he saw his amiable attitude. If Lin Xian was an unruly person, it would be very difficult for them to get along with him. But now, Lin Xian was so amiable. The middle-aged man in white robes was very happy. All right, child. Follow him to Golden Sword Peak, the mountain-moving general said. Then he looked at the middle-aged man in white robes. Tell your peak lord to take good care of this child. If his cultivation progress is delayed in any way, don't blame me for personally visiting your peak lord to reason with him. Chapter 1984. Of course not. Our Golden Sword Peak will do our best to nurture such a genius. The white-robed, middle-aged man smiled. There were a few other young cultivators in the distance. They had also successfully joined the Valyrian palace. They were envious when they heard this. Needless to say, Lin Xian would be greatly nurtured after joining the Golden Sword Peak. That was why they were envious. Lin Xian, on the other hand, was very calm because his target wasn't here. Joining the Valyrian palace was only his first step. His real goal was to enter the Tai dynasty's core. From there, he could obtain information about the nest of 10,000 dragons. "All right, you can come with me," the white-robed middle-aged man called out to Lin Xian. Then they walked into the distance. Soon, Lin Xian and the other young cultivators gathered together. They were all geniuses who were about to go to the Golden Sword Peak. Boom, boom, boom. The white-robed middle-aged man's hands moved, forming mysterious runes in the air. Then, the void tore apart and a shining golden door appeared in the air. Lin Xian knew that this was a portal that could be used for teleportation. However, opening it required a huge amount of resources. Even Lin Xian and the Crimson Dragon couldn't open it. One could only imagine how much resources the Valyrian palace had. Seeing that the portal was fully open, the white-robed middle-aged man waved his hand and stepped in. Then, the other geniuses followed suit. Lin Xian took a deep breath and entered the golden portal as well. Boom, boom, boom. Time and space changed. When Lin Xian's vision cleared up, he found himself in a mountain range. There were mountains and rivers all around him. The surrounding spirit chi was so dense that it had even turned into liquid droplets that flowed under his feet. The spirit chi here was definitely hundreds of times stronger than the outside world. The Tai dynasty was worthy of its name. A mere branch of the Valyrian palace had such a supreme spirit vein. Lin Xian didn't know how strong the core and heart of the Tai dynasty was. The young cultivators around him were ecstatic and excited. They looked around curiously and then locked their eyes on the front. There were countless clouds and mist there. A majestic mountain could be vaguely seen in the clouds. It was very tall, and it directly disappeared into the clouds. It was impossible to see where the top was. However, it was surrounded by countless rays of light. Halfway up the mountain, there were even rainbows gathered. It was like a paradise on earth. "Let's go. Jin Jianfeng is right in front of us." The white-robed, middle-aged man waved his hand and led Lin Xian and the others forward. The closer they got to the huge mountain range, the denser the spirit chi became. So much so that the sky was filled with multicolored light that shone on Lin Xian and the others. Although the mountain range in front of them looked very close, there was still a long way to go if they really wanted to walk. Therefore, during this time, the white-robed middle-aged man said in a low voice, "Let me give you a general overview of Valyrian Manor and Golden Sword Peak. The Tai dynasty has a total of 27 imperial mansions. Valyrian Palace is one of them. There are 5 great peaks beneath Valyrian Manor. Golden Sword Peak is one of them. Our Golden Sword Peak is not the strongest, but we're not the weakest either. There are many people in Golden Sword Peak. Just the cultivators alone number in the hundreds of thousands. However, there are only a few tens of thousands who are trained as core disciples. You are very lucky to be one of them. Our Peak Lord is the leader of Golden Sword Peak. Under him are 9 great elders, 72 envoys, and 1,000 attendants. Every attendant has several hundred to several thousand cultivators under them. After you enter Golden Sword Peak, you will be randomly assigned to one of the 1,000 attendants. From today onwards, you belong to Jin Jianfeng. You are also a member of Valyrian Manor. However, while you enjoy the resources, you will also work for Valyrian Manor. Of course, if you do a good job, you will be rewarded handsomely. You might even be accepted as a disciple by one of the 72 envoys. There are even those who are heaven-defying enough to be chosen by the 9 great elders. Then you really will reach the heavens in a single bound. Everyone was very excited when they heard this. However, it was at this time that a young man asked, "Senior, "What is your position in Golden Sword Peak?" They were very curious. Although this white-robed, middle-aged man hadn't become a great expert yet, his aura was enough to make them feel a sense of fear. There was no need to think. He must be one of the strongest 6-star kings. The white-robed, middle-aged man didn't get angry when he heard the question. Instead, he said, "I am a disciple of the 7th elder of the 9 great elders. Of course, I am just a good-for-nothing disciple. My senior brothers are much stronger than I am. The 7th elder." Everyone was surprised when they heard this. Lin Xian nodded slightly. It seemed that the 9 great elders were second only to the Peak Lord. The white-robed, middle-aged man in front of them was a disciple of the 7th elder. He must be a very honorable person. The white-robed, middle-aged man smiled. "You don't have to envy me. If you perform well, there is a very good chance that you will be accepted as a disciple by one of the 9 great elders." Everyone clenched their fists when they heard this. They swore that they would do their best to perform well and strive to become a disciple of one of the elders. Lin Xian was much calmer. Becoming a disciple of an elder was not his goal. His goal was to enter the core of the Tai dynasty. Of course, this matter had to be done step by step. Gradually, they approached the huge mountain range in front of them. Soon, an extremely powerful spiritual energy rushed towards them. As for the crowd, they slowly descended. Lin Xian followed the white-robed middle-aged man and the others and landed together. However, at this time he felt his heart palpitate. This was because he suddenly realized that behind the mountain range, there were 7 bright lights that connected to form a huge circle of light that flickered there. The 7 lights were very blurry, but they emitted a power that made one's heart tremble. Even a great expert would tremble in front of this power. Whoosh! Lin Xian took a deep breath to resist the pressure from the 7 lights. When he landed on the ground, he frowned and asked, "Senior, when I landed just now, I saw 7 rays of light in the distance. What is that?" "You saw it." The white-robed, middle-aged man was surprised. He then looked at Lin Xian carefully and said, "That is the depths of the Valurium Palace. It is the core of the Valurium Palace. Ordinary people can't even get close to it. Even I am not qualified. I'm afraid that other than the 5 peak lords and the elders, no one else is qualified to enter that place. The core of the Valurium Palace." Lin Xian was surprised. The Valurium Palace was indeed powerful. The pressure from the 7 lights was too terrifying. Chapter 1985. At the thought of this, Lin Xian clenched his fists. Power! He needed great power. Only then could he establish a foothold here. Although he was very strong now, he could compete with mighty figures. However, it was still not enough. Ordinary mighty figures were only 7-star kings. Above them, there were 8-star kings, 9-star kings, and legendary invincible kings. He still had a long way to go. Finally, they landed on the huge mountain range in front of them. The young geniuses around them exclaimed. Lin Xian was also extremely surprised because the scene was too spectacular. The mountain peak in front of them was tens of thousands of feet tall. It was like a giant sword that was inserted into the ground. It towered into the clouds, and one could not see the bottom. It was surrounded by a sea of clouds and spiritual springs. There were even cranes flying around. That abundant aura made the pores on one's body open. Even an ordinary person who cultivated here would be able to surpass the outside world. Lin Xian exclaimed in his heart. This was the benefit of having a heaven and earth spirit vein. The mountain range was very vast and huge, so Lin Xian and the others flew for a while before they saw the palaces and pavilions on the mountain peaks. They were scattered in groups of 3 to 5, like stars in the sky, dotting the mountain range. In the depths of the mountain range, there was a golden palace. It was golden and dazzling, like an immortal palace, towering above the clouds. That's the main palace of the Golden Sword Peak. It's also where they are going now. Follow me. Next, I'll bring you to the main palace to meet the elders. Whether you can be accepted as a disciple the first time will depend on your luck. Of course, even if you don't succeed the first time, you will have another chance in the future. So you must perform well. Yes. Everyone cheered loudly, extremely excited. In the next moment, everyone flew into the sky, and Lin Xian followed. The outside of the palace shone with golden light, and the inside of the palace was even more dazzling and majestic. The group of people stood inside as if they were standing in the sea and the starry sky. The entire palace was huge, no less than a huge city. You guys wait here for a while. The elders' envoys will be here soon, the white-robed, middle-aged man said. After that, Lin Xian and the others waited quietly in the hall. Many of them were so excited that they started whispering to each other. Not long after, Lin Xian suddenly frowned and turned to look outside the hall. At this moment, the white-robed, middle-aged man also looked out of the hall and said, "Everyone be quiet! The elders and emissaries are here." In the next moment, Lin Xian and the others looked outside. Sure enough, they saw spiritual energy, fluctuations in the sky. Light flashed, and then figures appeared one after another. Among these people, some were riding on red-crowned cranes, some were riding on clouds, and some were walking in the air. They were using all kinds of methods, as if they were immortals. Hoo! Their speed was very fast. In the blink of an eye, they arrived in front of the main hall. Then, with a flash, those figures arrived in the main hall. At this time, the white-robed, middle-aged man bowed respectfully to the various elders and emissaries. Behind him, Lin Xian and the other young geniuses also quickly bowed. Lin Xian knew that these should be the elders. However, there were not many of them. Only 4 of them came. There were also some others. They should be the emissaries of the 72 emissaries. In total, there were more than 10 of them. These people were extremely powerful. Among them, there were a few elders. Their eyes flickered with a fierce aura. Their auras had also reached the almighty level. Among them, the weakest was a 6-star king at the great perfection level. They were only 1 step away from the almighty level. The powerful ones were unfathomable. Because they were all almighties, the difference in strength was very obvious. Obviously, these almighties were not ordinary almighties. They were the very powerful ones. As soon as these people entered the main hall, they began to size up Lin Xian and the others. The white-robed, middle-aged man stood respectfully at the side, while Lin Xian and the other young warriors stood in front. There were only about 20 of them. At this moment, they were shrouded by the gazes of those almighties. These people felt extremely pressured. Lin Xian was fine because it was not his first time dealing with almighties. Therefore, he was still able to resist the pressure of such almighties. However, the other young martial artists were unable to resist. Fortunately, these almighties were only sizing them up and did not exert any special pressure on them. Otherwise, these people would not be able to withstand it. Buzz. At this moment, the sound of air being torn apart suddenly came from outside the hall. Then, a huge golden light soared in the sky, quickly rushed over. The light sword flickered with an incomparable golden light, illuminating the entire sky. In an instant, the sword light arrived in front of the main hall. In the next moment, it disappeared. In the main hall, there were 2 more figures. Lin Xian and the others turned their heads and saw a man and a woman. The man was wearing a black robe and looked extraordinarily handsome. As for the women, they were all wearing long purple dresses and had beautiful appearances. Both of them looked to be about 30 years old, but that was not their real age. As for their auras, they had become even more powerful. They had already reached the almighty level. It seemed that their auras were even more powerful than those of these elders. They are also elders. Lin Xian was slightly surprised. The auras of these 2 people were very powerful. Greetings, guardians. At this moment, the middle-aged man in the white robe bowed respectfully. The other elders in the main hall also nodded slightly. The envoys also bowed. No need to be so polite. The Peak Master is in seclusion and has no time to come out, so the two of us are here, the woman in the purple dress said coldly. At this moment, the man in the black robe also spoke. Just do as you did before. Yes. The middle-aged man in the white robe bowed slightly, and envoys of elders in front also invited the two guardians in. Lin Xian and the others were puzzled. But at this moment, the middle-aged man in the white robe sent a voice transmission. The two guardians had a very special status, second only to the hall master, and even higher than the 9 elders. However, they usually did not care about the secular world, so they did not expect to come this time. The two of them sat on all the elder seats and then closed their eyes slightly. The few elders were also sizing up Lin Xian and the others, but did not say anything. However, these elders did not come alone, and they brought some young warriors with them. It seemed that they were about the same age as Lin Xian and the others. These people also looked around and could not move their eyes away from Lin Xian and the others. Then, the corners of their mouths curled into a cold smile. Among them, a skinny young man shook his head slightly. These people's aptitude is too ordinary. How did they pass the test? Could it be that there are no more outstanding people coming this time? These people who could follow the elders here must be of extraordinary status. So at this moment, they also began to discuss in low voices. Chapter 1986. Hearing this, the warriors around Lin Xian frowned. Some of them even snorted, showing their dissatisfaction. That was because they had gone through a lot of hardships to get here. However, they were being called ordinary. How could these geniuses accept this? Even Lin Xian frowned slightly. It seemed that the young men in front of him were the disciples of the elders. The auras of those people were strong, and their strength far surpassed the geniuses around him. Moreover, if they were accepted as disciples by the elders, their talent must not be bad. Therefore, those people looked down on these newcomers. Lin Xian was relatively calm in the face of such discussions. This was because he no longer needed to rely on other people's comments to boost his confidence. However, the young geniuses around him were indignant. Yes, there isn't even a late-stage 6-star king among these people. It seems that their cultivation is really weak. Not only that, but they are also relatively old. Although resources are also needed for cultivation in the future, talent is still the most important. Without talent, it would be a waste of resources no matter how much you give them. Indeed, there was a popular saying in the cultivation world, talent determined the upper limit. With the same amount of resources, the more talented one was, the faster one's cultivation would rise. If one's talent was ordinary, although they could rise quickly in the early stages with a huge amount of resources, their speed would slow down when they reached a certain level. They might even never be able to break through. This was the difference in talent. In the eyes of the elders and disciples, the people below were also ordinary. The elders and disciples still wanted to say something, but at this moment, the purple-robed woman sitting above suddenly opened her beautiful eyes. Immediately, she emitted a sharp aura. Then the elders and disciples all shut their mouths, not daring to speak. At this moment, the white-robed youth by Qianqi also stood up and bowed to the left and right guardians and the elders. Then he said, "Seniors, allow me to introduce these people to you." These young warriors were all selected by the moving mountain general and the leaving fire general. They are the people who can enter the prince's mansion this time. The white-robed, middle-aged man introduced them one by one. He recounted the performance of these people in the selection competition to the elders and seniors. He spoke very carefully and did not miss a single detail. The entire hall was silent. Only the white-clothed, middle-aged man's words echoed in the hall. However, the elders remained silent. Even the protector's eyes were flickering. However, he had no intention of asking. This meant that they were not very interested. Although their disciples had been stopped by the protector, the elders still agreed with their disciples' thoughts. These people's talents were ordinary, and none of them were particularly outstanding. Therefore, he was not worthy of them taking him in as a disciple. Since no one was interested in these people, the purple-clothed woman opened her beautiful eyes again. Her cold voice rang out, "If that's the case, by Qianqi, take them down there to train. Don't worry. Although you won't have the chance this time, if you perform well in the future, you might still be able to catch the eye of these elders. If any of you can show great potential in the future, perhaps the right guardian and I will be tempted to take you in as disciples." She then waved her hand gently, indicating for Bai Qianqi to take the people away. Since the left protector had spoken, those elders also stood up and prepared to leave with their disciples. However, Bai Qianqi did not move. He said again, "Protector, there's one more person I haven't introduced." Hearing this, the purple-clothed woman was stunned and opened her beautiful eyes again. As for those elders, their expressions sunk. They seemed to be unwilling to do so. The left protector had already spoken, and they were all prepared to leave. However, Bai Qianqi still had someone to introduce. Wasn't he deliberately wasting their time? He had already seen these people. Their talents were ordinary, and none of them had reached the late-stage 6-star king realm. In other words, their potential was not particularly great. Thus, whether or not he could become a mighty figure was still a difficult problem. Therefore, they would not accept such people. Therefore, they were not interested in the people Bai Qianqi was going to introduce next. However, Bai Qianqi walked up to Lin Xian and said respectfully again, "The last person I want to introduce is him." Hearing this, the elders, envoys, and even the left protector all turned to look at Lin Xian. Immediately, the pressure on Lin Xian increased, but he still looked calm. Not bad. He's able to face so many people without batting an eyelid. He's really good. However, his cultivation is too weak. He's only an early-stage 6-star king. I'm not interested in such a person. An elder shook his head slightly. The eyes of the others also flickered. Obviously, they had seen through Lin Xian's cultivation at a glance, and their interest was immediately dampened. The disciples behind them were about the same age as Lin Xian, but their cultivation had already reached the late-stage 6-star king realm. Although it was only the difference between the early stage and late stage, it was impossible to break through without more than 10 years, even if one was a genius. The older one was, the higher the cultivation, the better the talent. For example, Lin Xian's age and cultivation, although he was a genius in other places, in the eyes of these elders he was still nothing. At this moment, a short and fat elder in a red robe also spoke. "Bai Qianqi, your eyesight is getting worse and worse. What kind of disciple does old seventh teach?" This red-robed elder was the 8th elder. Bai Qianqi's master was the 7th elder, and the two of them were not on good terms. Therefore, when he saw Bai Qianqi mention an early-stage 6-star king, the 8th elder sneered. Bai Qianqi also snorted coldly in his heart. He did not have a good impression of the 8th elder. However, the other party was an elder, and he did not dare to openly contradict him, because if he did, he would be punished by Jin Jianfeng. However, the other party's arrogant attitude really pissed him off. Therefore, he planned to use Lin Xian to contradict the other party. Since the other party looked down on Lin Xian, he wanted to see what the 8th elder's expression would be when he mentioned Lin Xian's achievements. At this moment, the purple-robed woman also spoke. "Oh, there's one more person you haven't introduced? You left him for last. Could it be that there's something special about this kid?" As a protector, the purple-robed woman was relatively patient. Therefore, she asked in a deep voice, "To be honest, protector, this little brother is really a little special. Moreover, I believe that with this little brother's talent, ordinary elders are really not qualified to take him as a disciple. Speaking of this, she glanced at the eighth elder. Chapter 1987. Humph. The eighth elder snorted when he saw Bai Qianqi's gaze. Anger burned in his eyes. How dare he say that he didn't have the right to take this kid as a disciple? What a joke! He was one of the 9 great elders. Although he was ranked 8th, he was still an elder. Moreover, he had reached the level of a great expert. That was a terrifying existence. Therefore, the 8th elder said darkly, "What kind of genius is he that even elders like us don't have the right to take him in?" Bai Qianqi, I can see that your eyesight has deteriorated, but your ability to talk big has improved a lot. It seems that old 7th really knows how to take in disciples. Bai Qianqi gnashed his teeth in anger when he heard the 8th elder mocking him again. However, he was only a small disciple. He didn't dare oppose an elder. Therefore, he could only cup his fists and look at the purple-clad woman. The other elders were surprised as well. They sized up Lin Xian once more, and when they discovered that he was really just an early 6-star King realm youth, they immediately revealed doubtful looks. Bai Qianqi, tell us what's so special about this kid. He's just an early 6-star king. You're not trying to fool us with him, are you? The purple-clad woman was also very curious. She nodded slightly and said, "Tell us your reason, Bai Qianqi." Yes. Bai Qianqi didn't dare delay when the purple-clad woman spoke. He hurriedly introduced, "This young genius is Lin Xian. He just arrived at Valuria Manor today and was chosen by the Mountain Raiser General." What? Just arrived at Valuria Manor? That's impossible. Many people in the Great Hall were in an uproar when they heard this. The elder's disciples especially cried out in surprise. Bai Qianqi, don't lie. How can someone be chosen by the Mountain Raiser General on the first day? That's right. Someone who just arrived on the first day doesn't even have the right to participate in the selection. Bai Qianqi, you're clearly lying. Many people shook their heads. The 8th elder's disciple sneered. I'm not lying. He didn't participate in the selection. This brother Lin provoked the Battle Wolf Gang on his first day here. After that, he started a great battle with the 4 gang leaders of the Battle Wolf Gang and the 300 elites of the Battle Wolf Gang on the martial arts practice field. He single-handedly defeated 300 elites and 4 sect masters. There's actually such a thing. Hearing this, the envoys and elders were also moved. As for the disciples of the elders, they were all stunned. One by one, they opened their eyes wide in disbelief. They had also heard of the Battle Wolf Gang. They did not place the Battle Wolf Gang in their eyes, including the gang leaders of the Battle Wolf Gang. However, if the 4 sect masters and the 300 elites attacked together, no matter how strong they were, they wouldn't be able to resist. After all, although they were geniuses, they were not almighties. Moreover, these people had never heard of any 6-star king who could contend against such a lineup. Therefore, their first reaction was disbelief. However, Bai Qianqi said loudly, "I can't lie about this. All 200,000 people outside the king's mansion saw it. Moreover, the mountain-moving general and the colored glass general had seen it with their own eyes. If the elders don't believe me, feel free to ask them." Originally, these elders and disciples did not believe him at all. However, at this moment, they saw Bai Qianqi's confident look. They were very confused. Could it be that this kid in front of them really had a way to contend against so many experts? This time, even the purple-clothed woman was interested. She said coldly, "Bai Qianqi, continue." Yes, Bai Qianqi continued. This brother Lin attracted the attention of the mountain-moving general after defeating the 4 sect masters and the 300 elites. Then, the mountain-moving general suppressed his cultivation and used the strength of a 6-star king to fight this brother Lin. In the end, the 2 of them tied. What? He tied with the mountain-moving general. Hearing this, the elders also exclaimed in surprise. Their eyes were wide open. They looked as if they had seen a ghost. At this moment, the black-clothed man who had been closing his eyes suddenly opened his eyes. His sharp gaze pierced through the void. "Is this true?" the black-clothed man looked at by Qianqi and Lin Xian. "Of course it's true. How would I dare to lie? Moreover, before I came, the mountain-moving general specifically told me to introduce this brother Lin to him. Moreover, he said that if our golden sword Peak did not take good care of this little brother here, he would personally talk to the Peak Master." Whoosh! Once those words were spoken, even the elders sucked in a mouthful of cold air. Each and every one of them felt their scalps go numb. To be honest, they did not believe that this young man in front of them could tie with the mountain-moving general. Although the mountain-moving general had suppressed his cultivation, they knew how terrifying the mountain-moving general was. As elders, they did not have the confidence to suppress the mountain-moving general, let alone an early 6-star king in front of them. However, from the looks of it, he actually did it. However, how did he do it? It was hard for them to imagine. However, among them, one of the blue-robed elders was the first to react. He said with a smile, "Why don't you let this kid join my sect? I'll train him well." As soon as he said that, the others were shocked. Then they came back to their senses. A black-robed elder said, "Old Five, what do you mean? Why are you snatching him so soon? Didn't you look down on him before?" "I dozed off before and didn't notice. Only now do I realize that this little guy actually has such talent. He's fated to be with me." Hearing the blue-robed elder's words, the corners of the young disciples' mouths twitched. Damn, how shameless can you be? Previously, these people clearly looked down on Lin Xian. However, after hearing about Lin Xian's miraculous battle results, they only started to snatch him. That was too shameless. Of course, they did not dare to say that out loud. They could only think about it in their hearts. However, while they did not dare to say it out loud, the other elders dared to say it out loud. Among them, the black-robed elder said, "Old Five, what you're doing is very shameless. I think this little brother is fated to be with me." "Third brother, you're also snatching people? Aren't the slots for the disciples behind you all full?" Another elder spoke. This time it was the fourth elder. Then the others also spoke one after another, expressing their willingness to accept Lin Xian as their disciple. Meanwhile, the eighth elder's face was flushed red. He was so angry that he gritted his teeth. That was because previously he had sneered and mocked Lin Xian, thinking that he was not worthy of being his disciple. However, now it seemed that he was not qualified to accept Lin Xian as his disciple. Whether it was the fifth elder, the fourth elder, or the third elder, he was no match for them. Now he was the most upset. He wanted to immediately find a hole to hide in so that he would not be embarrassed standing there. Chapter 1988. He wanted nothing more than to dig a hole in the ground and crawl into it. He didn't want to stand here and embarrass himself. At this time, the blue-robed elder smiled and said, "Little guy, you should join my sect. I recently took in a girl. She's about the same age as you, and she's very pretty. You could say that she's a national beauty. If you can join my sect, you might be able to have a wonderful relationship with this little girl." Damn, this Elder Zhang is too shameless. The other disciples almost spat out blood when they heard this. The other elders' mouths twitched as well. The blue-robed elder was all smiles. If Lin Xian was really as amazing as they said, then he was definitely a peerless genius. So what if he used a honey trap to lure him over? It was just one female disciple. He would be willing even if it was 2 or 3. The third elder gritted his teeth when he heard the blue-robed elder's words. He hadn't thought that the other would use a honey trap as well. However, he wasn't going to give up. In the next moment, he spoke in a low voice. "Little child, you must be very strong to be able to contend against the Mountain Raiser General. I have a set of glazed vidra fist here. It's a top fist technique that walks the path of strength and ferocity. It's very valuable. If you can become my disciple, I can teach you this glazed vidra fist. What? The glazed vidra fist? You're actually willing to take out such a treasure? The other elders exclaimed in surprise after hearing this. That's right. The glazed vidra fist was no ordinary technique. It was one of Valyrian Palace's top fist techniques. It was extremely valuable, apart from Valyrian Palace's core members. Only the third elder and his disciple had the right to practice it. At this moment, the third elder was using this fist technique to recruit Lin Xian. The other elders weren't willing to give up either. They all took out their trump cards to attract Lin Xian to their sect. All right, let's stop fighting. You're all over 1,000 years old. Why are you still so childish? Right at this moment, the violet-clothed woman smiled. Hearing this, the elders in the hall stopped arguing. However, they still looked at Lin Xian with fiery gazes. At this moment, the eighth elder sneered. Then he turned his head slightly and gave the disciple behind him a look. The disciple behind him immediately came to a realization, causing a cold grin to appear on his face. In the next moment, the disciple stood up and bowed to the surroundings, the two protectors and the various elders. I have a suggestion. I don't know what the seniors think. In any case, we have only heard of this little brother in front of us. We have never seen his strength. I think it would be better for me to fight against this little brother. Firstly, I will be able to help the elders verify the strength of this little brother. Furthermore, if this little brother is truly talented, it won't be too late for the elders to fight over him. At this point, he looked at Lin Xian with a smile and a trace of cold light in his eyes. Hearing this, the elders nodded slightly. Indeed, they had not seen Lin Xian's strength. What if what Bai Qianqi said was false? If Lin Xian was not a genius, then they would not only lose their treasures after paying a huge price, but they might also be ridiculed by others. Immediately, the elders nodded in agreement. The two protectors also looked at each other. Then the black-robed man said, "All right. However, since it's a sparring session, let's stop here." "Yes, sir." The eighth elder's disciple was overjoyed when he heard this. As for the eighth elder, he narrowed his eyes and revealed a cold smile. He did not believe that the kid in front of him had any outstanding talent. Therefore, he decided to send out his disciple to test the kid. As long as the kid was not strong enough, he would definitely be beaten to the ground. At that time, he would like to see which elder would be willing to accept such a piece of trash. The eighth elder was very satisfied and confident with his disciple. The disciple had short red hair and a dignified appearance. He was extremely handsome, and there was fire dancing in his eyes. He took 2 steps forward and stood in front of Lin Xian. He said loudly, "My name is Sun Yi, the eighth elder's disciple. My cultivation has reached the peak 6-star king level. Since you can compete with the moving mountain general, it shouldn't be much of a problem for you to fight me, right?" He deliberately mentioned the moving mountain general so that Lin Xian would not reject him. Because he was a peak 6-star king, his strength was extremely powerful. Below the almighty level, other than those at the peak 6-star king level, no one else was his match. Seeing the scene, the elders and young warriors all looked on with interest. They all stepped back and made an empty space. Bai Qianqi also looked calm because he had seen Lin Xian's strength with his own eyes. Therefore, he was not worried. Therefore, he retreated to the side of the crowd. Lin Xian looked at the handsome young man with short red hair in front of him. His eyes flickered, and then he said in a deep voice, "Just you? The eighth elder has another disciple, right? Why don't the 2 of you come at me together? This way, your strength will be more balanced." "What? Together?" Hearing this, everyone was stunned. That was right. The eighth elder had 2 disciples. Apart from them, there was another young man. However, no matter how they looked at it, Lin Xian's words were too arrogant. He wanted to challenge two peak six-star almighties. He was simply courting death. Humph! The eighth elder snorted coldly, his expression extremely cold. The other party was actually so arrogant. He was really ignorant. Sun Yi even roared, "Kid, you're courting death." He did not expect that the other party would dare to look down on him. It was unforgivable. My senior brother doesn't even have to do anything. I can deal with you alone. 3 moves. I only need 3 moves to beat you to the ground. Originally, Sun Yi wanted to say 1 move. However, seeing that everyone was praising Lin Xian so much, he was not very confident. Therefore, he decided to use 3 moves to beat the other party down. He thought that 3 moves should be enough. Lin Xian laughed. 3 moves? You're too cowardly. He stretched out a finger and said in a clear voice, 1 move, I only need 1 move, and I think the outcome will be decided. He was very calm, as if he was not in a competition. Despicable kid, you're too arrogant. I'll let you know what it means to keep a low profile. Sun Yi roared, and his expression became extremely ferocious. In the next moment, 2 balls of red flames appeared in his eyes. Soon, the flames on his body rose and formed a flaming armor that wrapped around his body. Not only that, but there were also bright red flames dancing on his palms. It was abnormally evil. He was very confident in himself. Whether it was his fist technique or his cultivation, he was above his opponent. Therefore, he couldn't think of any way that his opponent could defeat him. But in the next moment, his expression changed. The contempt in his eyes disappeared and was replaced by shock and disbelief. This was because he discovered that his fiery red fist was covered in frost, as if it was about to be frozen. How is that possible? Damn it, melt for me. Sun Yi roared crazily. The heat in his body surged even more, as if he was a fire god. The monstrous heat wave shattered the void, but it was unable to melt the ice. Soon, the punch he threw out was frozen. Not only that, that huge blue frost palm carried the power of ice and snow, quickly enveloping him. What? The surrounding elders opened their eyes wide as if they had seen a ghost, unable to believe this scene. As for those elders, they started to frown. How was this possible? 8th elder's face was even darker. He did not believe that Sun Yi would lose to his opponent, because there was no reason. Whether it was cultivation or martial skills, Sun Yi far surpassed his opponent. But why would this scene appear? He could not understand. And under the blue frost palm, Sun Yi roared crazily. His entire body was covered in flames, turning into strange runes. It attacked in all directions. However, it was useless. Not only was his move broken, but his body was also quickly covered in frost, freezing him into an ice sculpture. Ka ka ka! No! Sun Yi screamed crazily, wanting to burn all his power. But in the end, he was still frozen. The expression on his face was frozen with deep fear, and Lin Xian's previous words were still echoing in his mind. 1 move could end the battle. For a moment, everyone in the entire hall was stunned. Even the left and right custodians exchanged glances with one another in astonishment. At this moment, they all remembered Lin Xian's previous words. 1 move to end the battle. Originally, they thought that the young man was arrogant and did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. But they did not expect that the young man really had such strength. He defeated 8th elder's proud disciple in 1 move. Humph! The 8th elder could not bear to watch any longer. With a wave of his sleeve, a fierce flame turned into a half-moon arc. It instantly hit the frost palm in front of him and immediately cut it open. He saved Sun Yi. However, at this moment, Sun Ye's entire body was covered in frost. His entire body was trembling like a snowman. Not only his body, but the spiritual power in his body was also frozen. He even felt that his soul was about to be frozen. Seeing this scene, the surrounding people were even more shocked. Eighth Elder's face was extremely gloomy. He was defeated, completely defeated, and there was no luck. His opponent's strength was beyond his expectations. Therefore, Eighth Elder's face was very ugly, as if he had eaten a dead mouse. The left and right guardians looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. They knew that Lin Xian was definitely a genius, and a genius who could fight above his level. This kind of person was very terrifying. Their true combat strength could not be measured by their cultivation level. Genius, he's definitely a peerless genius. It was really rare to see someone who could fight above his level, especially 2 or 3 small realms. Amazing, no wonder he's chosen by the mountain-moving general. Exclamations of surprise rang out one after another. The eyes of those elders were spitting fire as they stared at Lin Xian as if they were looking at a peerless beauty. Previously, they still had some doubts. But now, after seeing this battle, they no longer had any doubts. They had to get their hands on such a precious genius. This was because they knew that with Lin Xian's talent, with a little bit of training, he would definitely be able to rise quickly. In that case, whoever took in Lin Xian would have a greatly improved status in Jin Jianfeng in the future. This was definitely a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Therefore, these elders would not give up at all. Kid, if you join my sect, I'll definitely make you an almighty as soon as possible. The blue-robed elder said quickly. Chapter 1990. What you have, I have. What you don't have, I have too. What do you have to make him become an almighty as soon as possible? On the other side, the third elder also snorted coldly. Then he said, You won't regret joining my sect. The 2 elders began to argue, opposing each other with equal harshness. The atmosphere in the field became more and more heated. When the other elders saw that the third elder and the blue-robed elder were fighting, they gave up. They couldn't win against the 2 of them at all. They shook their heads and sighed. They could only watch this fight with the mood of watching a show. Third elder brother, you're too overbearing. What do you mean I don't have what I have? The blue-robed elder was unconvinced. Your disciple quota is already full. What's the point of fighting? Fifth elder, you can't say that. Anyone would want such a genius. Since you and I both want him, why don't we have a competition? All right, let's do it. I'm not afraid of you. The blue-robed elder also rolled up his sleeves. Their auras continued to climb to the peak, as if 2 invisible mountains were colliding in the air, emitting sonorous sounds. A surging river appeared above the blue-robed elder's head. It was like the Milky Way, endless and sweeping in all directions. The third elder was illuminated by the Buddha's light. A ball of glazed light appeared on his body, making him look like a Buddha. He was incomparably valiant. Since the 2 guardians are here today, let's see who will win in the end. The third elder's voice sounded, and the glazed light on his body became brighter and brighter. Humph! The blue-robed elder snorted coldly. The Milky Way above his head surged and surrounded his body like a heavenly snake, shining brightly. All right, the 2 of you, stop fighting. They were almost 2,000 years old, but they were still like children fighting over a disagreement. They weren't afraid of being laughed at by the younger generation. The woman in purple frowned when she saw this scene. The black-robed man also said, How about this? Let this kid decide who he wants to be his master. Since the black-robed man had spoken, the third elder and the blue-robed elder couldn't fight. Therefore, the 2 of them snorted and retracted their powerful auras. Then, their fiery eyes stared at Lin Xian again. The blue-robed elder was the first to speak. Little doll, I see that you are an ice element martial artist, while I am a water element martial artist. Ice and water are both of the same element. If you follow me, you will definitely be able to increase your ice power. So what if he has water? Not only does he have ice, but he also has strength and a strong physique. Being able to contend against the mountain-moving general proves this point. My glazed Vidra fist is definitely most suitable for him. On the other side, the three elders were unwilling to show weakness. For a moment, everyone looked at Lin Xian. As for Lin Xian, he was frowning slightly. He had not expected this to happen. To be honest, he did not want to choose either of the two elders. Therefore, he was now thinking about how to reject the two of them without hurting their faces too much. However, he hadn't decided yet. At this time, another golden light came from outside the main hall. It was like a golden lightning bolt, arriving above the main hall in an instant. Suddenly, the golden light flashed and turned into a blurry human figure. Peak Master! When they saw the golden figure, everyone was stunned. In the next moment, they all bowed to the void. You don't have to fight. I will take this young man as my disciple, the golden figure above said slowly. The Peak Master will take him as his disciple personally. Everyone was shocked. They had not expected that the fight this time would attract the Peak Master. Moreover, the Peak Master would take him as his disciple personally. This was too shocking. After all, the Peak Master had not taken in any disciples for 500 years. The Peak Master had a total of 2 disciples, both of whom were taken in 500 years ago. In the past 500 years, he had not taken in anyone. They did not expect that he would take in another disciple this time. Brother Lin, hurry up and thank him. Bai Qianqi whispered to him through voice transmission because he realized that Lin Xian was still in a daze. Lin Xian was indeed stunned. He did not expect the situation to change again. However, he soon heaved a sigh of relief. This was good too. He did not want to be the disciple of the 2 elders in the first place. Now that a Peak Master had appeared, he had a choice. Therefore, he also quickly cupped his fists towards the golden figure in the sky. Seeing the scene, the 3rd elder and Elder Lanbao sighed. They knew that things could no longer be changed. The other elders quickly congratulated the Peak Master for taking in such a talented disciple. The golden figure laughed loudly, gave some instructions, and then disappeared into the void. Lin Xian could see that this was not the true body of the other party, but a manifestation of the other party's mystique. However, he did not care because he had not come here to become a disciple in the first place. He only wanted to find information about the nest of 10,000 dragons. After the golden figure left, the main hall fell silent again. Then the purple-robed woman said, "All right, except for Lin Xian, who has been taken in as a disciple by the Peak Master, you can distribute the others. Take them down and let them experience it. If they perform well in the future, they will be judged again." Next, the envoys distributed the remaining new disciples, and this matter was considered to have come to an end. "Brother Lin, congratulations," Bai Qianqi said with a smile. "It's nothing. I was just lucky." Lin Xian smiled. "You don't know, but the Peak Master of the Golden Sword Peak is an unparalleled almighty. He only has 2 disciples. Including you, it's the 3rd. Being a disciple of the Peak Master is different from being a disciple of the other elders. The resources you can enjoy and the mystiques you learn are definitely beyond your imagination. Who are the other 2 disciples?" Lin Xian asked. "Senior sister Qinlan and 2nd senior brother Qixing. These 2 people are already almighties now. I reckon they will send someone to pick you up in a while. 2 almighty disciples." Lin Xian was surprised. He did not expect the Peak Master to be so impressive. The 2 disciples he taught had already become almighties. It seemed that they had far surpassed those elders. "Brother Lin, there's one more thing I need to remind you of. Although you've become the Peak Lord's disciple, since you have become a disciple of the Peak Master, you still have to be careful. Senior sister Qinlan has a bad temper. Don't provoke her. However, 2nd senior brother Qixing is quite kind. If you have any questions, you can ask him, Bai Qianqi said softly. Bai Qianqi said in a low voice. Evidently, he was deeply afraid of that eldest senior sister Qinlan. As they were talking, a bright voice sounded in the sky. Then, a huge red-crowned crane flew over. On the red-crowned crane stood a man and a woman. They were very young. Moreover, they were very beautiful. Their aura was that of a 6-star king. Soon, the huge red-crowned crane stopped in the sky. Then the two people looked down and shouted, "Qianqi." Chapter 1991. Little Yu Datong. Bai Qianqi also greeted them with a smile. Then he said to Lin Xian, "These two are second senior brother Qixing's disciples." Then Bai Qianqi said to the two people on the red-crowned crane, "Little Yu Datong, this is the Peak Master's new disciple." "Greetings, young Uncle Master." The young man and woman on the red-crowned crane hurriedly bowed to Lin Xian. "You don't have to be so polite." Lin Xian smiled. He did not expect that he would suddenly become an Uncle Master. At this moment, Bai Qianqi said, "Brother Lin, logically speaking, I should also call you Uncle Master because the Peak Master's disciple has the same status as an elder. And we are the elder's disciples, so according to seniority, I should also call you Uncle Master." "Forget it, Brother Bai. Don't make fun of me." Lin Xian shook his head. Lin Xian felt very strange to have someone so much older than him call him Uncle Master. Although he felt a little uncomfortable, he knew that this was very normal behavior. It was like this in the cultivation world. Seniority was not determined by age, but by one's actions. Even if one was only 7 or 8 years old, if one's cultivation had reached the almighty level, a group of old men would probably respectfully call one a senior. "Uncle Master, please come with us," the two people on the red-crowned crane said respectfully. Then Lin Xian nodded and said goodbye to Bai Qianqi. Then his figure swayed and he got on the red-crowned crane. The red-crowned crane spread its wings and flew like a shooting star, quickly streaking across the sky. After about the time it took for an incense stick to burn, the red-crowned crane finally slowed down and stopped in midair. "Young Uncle Master, we're here," the two people next to him said respectfully. Lin Xian nodded slightly and looked ahead. Then his figure swayed and he left the red-crowned crane. The young man and woman behind him also landed. Then the red-crowned crane cried and spread its wings to leave. "Uncle Master, please." The young man and woman led the way, guiding Lin Xian towards the huge and majestic palace. The palace was extremely luxurious. After entering, Lin Xian realized that the floor of the palace was actually paved with spirit stones. This was truly extravagant and extravagant. Most people wouldn't dare to use spirit stones to pave a road. Even if they wanted to, they didn't have the financial resources to do so. Lin Xian walked on the floor paved with spirit stones and followed the young man and woman in front of him into the main hall. There was a figure standing in front of him. The person was currently sitting cross-legged on the ground. Mysterious runes were flickering around him. His jet-black hair fluttered even though there was no wind. His eyes were tightly shut, and his cheeks were as sharp as a knife. Sensing that someone had entered, the man in front slowly opened his eyes. His eyes were long and narrow and deep, as vast and boundless as the stars. "Master." The young man and woman at the front bowed respectfully. The black-haired man nodded slightly. In the next moment, his gaze swept past the young man and woman and landed on Lin Xian at the back. Immediately, a smile appeared on his face. As his smile spread, his chiseled face no longer became sharp. Instead, it was replaced by a touch of gentleness. "You should be Master's new junior brother, right?" The black-haired man in front of him said softly. "That's right." Lin Xian nodded, then cupped his fists. "Greetings, senior brother." In the next moment, the black-haired man slowly stood up. His body was slender, like a sharp sword. Although you've been accepted as Master's disciple, you still have to undergo some tests to obtain Master's true inheritance. Let me remind you, this test isn't simple. It's even a little dangerous. Of course, you can refuse. That way, you'll still be Master's disciple, but only in name. You won't be able to learn Master's extensive and profound divine abilities. So, junior brother, are you willing to participate in this test? Test? Lin Xian narrowed his eyes. He didn't know about this before, but he was very curious about what this test was. Therefore, after pondering for a moment, he nodded slightly. Yes. Very good. Master didn't misjudge you. The black-haired man smiled, then stretched out his hand and quickly formed a seal. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Imprints formed in the air, then formed a strange pattern. Suddenly, thousands of rays of light were emitted from those imprints. Not only that, mysterious runes appeared on the crystal floor under his feet. Countless rays of light wrapped around Lin Xian's body. Lin Xian didn't resist. He knew that there was no danger, and that he should have entered the so-called test. When the surrounding light disappeared, Lin Xian looked around. Endless white fog surrounded him. It was so vast that he couldn't see the end of it. However, in the next moment, his surroundings changed instantly. Mountains, rivers, palaces, and pavilions appeared around him. In front of him was endless white fog, which condensed into a beautiful figure, Morong Qingqing. The figure that condensed was Morong Qingqing. However, after her, the figures of Zhao Shui and Xin Jingqiu condensed. The three of them were exactly the same. It was impossible to tell them apart. Their eyes were like autumn water, shrouding Lin Xian. Xianer. At this moment, a calm voice sounded behind Lin Xian. Then, Lin Xian's body shook and he turned around. He saw a middle-aged man standing there, looking like a god of war. He was extraordinarily handsome. Father, Lin Xian exclaimed subconsciously, but soon he frowned, because he knew that all of this was an illusion and it wasn't real. The scene around him also changed rapidly, and finally a huge mansion was formed. The vermilion door flickered with light. On the door plaque were 3 large words written in flamboyant calligraphy. Sword Pool Manor. Is this the first test? Looking at his surroundings, Lin Xian's lips curled into a smile. Follow your heart. Lin Xian smiled and walked forward, holding the hands of the 3 women beside him, and then walked towards the Sword Pool Mansion with the tall middle-aged man. Lin Xian was going through the test, and in the hall, the young man and woman had already left. Only the black-haired man was left. There was a ball of light floating in front of him, showing the scenes that Lin Xian was going through. When he saw Lin Xian holding the hands of the 3 beauties and entering the Sword Pool Mansion, he suddenly exclaimed softly, "Follow your heart." This guy is really bold. Isn't he afraid of getting lost? This junior brother's method is quite unique. At this moment, a cold voice sounded, and then the void fluctuated, and a blue figure appeared in the hall. She was wearing a long blue dress that was like the sea. This woman was beautiful, and her black hair was tied up with a red string. Her eyes were bright, but there was a sharp aura in them. It was as if she was a knife, and no one dared to look at her directly. Chapter 1992. Senior sister, you're here. The black-haired man smiled when he saw the woman in blue. He was the Peak Master's 2nd disciple, and the woman in blue was the eldest disciple, Qinlan. Qinlan said coldly as she stared at the ball of light floating in the air with her beautiful eyes. This person's method is actually the same as that person's. They both chose such a dangerous method. Looks like he's not someone easy to deal with. Senior sister, there's no need to be nervous. It's very easy to lose oneself by following one's heart. Even if he can persist, he probably won't be able to persist for long, 7 Stars said nonchalantly. However, Qin Lan's expression was ice cold. Don't forget what happened 300 years ago. Don't forget that there was a person who used the same method 300 years ago and stayed inside for 100 years. One day outside was equivalent to 100 years inside. 7 Star's face stiffened, and even the smile on his face disappeared. However, he quickly returned to his senses and said with a smile, "Senior sister, you're overthinking. After all, that person is an exceptional genius. One can only come across it by chance. Not everyone is able to persevere for such a long period of time. I wonder how long this brat can persist?" Inside the test, Lin Xian, Murong Qingqing, Zhao Shui, and Xun Jingqiu started their lives. Not only them, but Lin Xian's parents, grandfather, uncle, and the entire Lin family also started their lives. They started their lives together in Swordpool Mansion. This kind of life was very peaceful and tranquil. Outside, Qin Lan and 7 Star also had extremely grave expressions because Lin Xian had stayed inside for a day. In other words, he had stayed inside for 100 years. This made them extremely solemn, because the person from 300 years ago only stayed inside for a day. But now Lin Xian had stayed inside for a day and still hadn't come out. This made both of them somewhat anxious. This was because the first test tested one's heart, which was very important. Furthermore, it was extremely mysterious and couldn't be described with words. It was even more impossible to figure it out because everyone was different. However, they knew that the longer they stayed inside, the greater their future achievements and the broader their future martial path. Furthermore, there were many choices for the first stage. For example, he and Qin Lan had chosen a different path, which was to directly kill everything in their way to clear the stage. The other was the same as Lin Xian, who chose to accept the illusory realm and experience countless baptisms. The latter choice was extremely dangerous because over time the cultivator would get lost in it. Would they not be able to distinguish between reality and illusion? However, if he could persevere in the end, the benefits he would gain would be self-evident. First of all, their martial hearts would become firmer, and even their soul force would be nourished and enhanced. Lin Xian stayed for an entire day, making Qin Lan and Big Dipper very uneasy. In the middle of the mountains, there was a palace that was surrounded by mist. There was a golden figure sitting cross-legged inside. There was also a ball of light in front of him. At this moment, the scene of Lin Xian also appeared. The golden figure looked at the ball of light and nodded slightly. He was very satisfied. One day passed quickly, and then the next. This kind of life was very pleasant. It was like a quagmire that could make people sink deeply into it. However, Lin Xian opened his eyes inside the illusory realm at this moment. Golden light flickered in his eyes, and all the illusory realms were destroyed in an instant. Lin Xian took a step forward and left the illusory realm. This guy actually stayed for 2 days. He stayed an entire day longer than the person from 300 years ago. That was an additional 100 years of experience. This made 7 Star and Qin Lan very uneasy. Humph! Qin Lan coldly snorted. She turned around and directly left the great hall. Meanwhile, the black-haired man, 7 Star, stared at the ball of light. His eyes flickered with a trace of coldness. Lin Xian left the illusory realm's test, but did not return to reality. Instead, he came to another space. The surrounding scenery changed drastically. Ancient lands appeared below and formed a huge arena with a radius of 10,000 miles. Fight! Lin Xian's lips curled into a smile as he looked at his surroundings. He was not afraid of a fight. Sure enough, a black figure condensed on top of the huge black arena. He was pitch black, and his eyes emitted a cold light. There seemed to be a pair of black wings growing on his back. Humph! The black figure snorted. The wings on his back flapped, and he turned into an afterimage and charged toward Lin Xian. He arrived in front of Lin Xian in an instant. Then he clenched his hands, and a black spear quickly appeared. With a shake of his hands, the black spear turned into a black dragon and swept toward Lin Xian. Boom! Lin Xian's expression was solemn. Then he waved his hand and quickly struck out with the frost palm. Instantly, a palm that flickered with blue light and carried with it wind and frost slapped forward. Boom, boom, boom. There was an earth-shattering collision. Then, Lin Xian and the black figure fought fiercely. The two of them fought fiercely. However, at this moment, Lin Xian frowned. This was because he had the god's eye of heaven and his powerful soul power. It could be said that his perception surpassed ordinary almighties. At this moment, he could sense that there seemed to be a pair of eyes watching him. This feeling made his heart beat wildly, so he decided to conserve his strength and not use the power of the dragon sword soul. Instead, he only used the power of the sea god's ice to fight. Therefore, after 200 moves, Lin Xian was stabbed by the other party's spear. However, he was not injured. The black spear had passed through his body and was very illusory. Then, the black figure turned into a cloud of thick fog and disappeared into the sky. 200 moves, huh? It's beyond my expectations, but it's still not ridiculously strong. The black-haired youth, 7-star, muttered to himself. At the same time, in another mysterious palace, the golden figure's eyes flickered. However, he did not say anything. The second stage was passed just like that. The third stage was even simpler. It was a test of bloodline power. However, Lin Xian did not have any bloodline power, so this test was extremely ordinary. This made the black-haired youth sigh in relief. Although the other party's performance in the first stage was very valiant, the third stage was truly too ordinary. He did not have any bloodline power. He was simply an ordinary person. One had to know that 7-star also had a bloodline power. Hence, 7-star's lips curled up into a smile. On the other side, Lin Xian's figure gradually faded as he exited the test and entered the palace. Congratulations, little junior brother, for successfully passing. When Lin Xian came out, the nervous and cold expression on 7-star's face completely disappeared. Instead, it was replaced by a warm smile. Chapter 1993. Little junior brother, come with me. I'll bring you to your residence. 7-star waved his sleeve and opened the palace's doors. Dazzling sunlight spilled in and illuminated the surroundings. Then he stepped into the air barefoot and walked into the distance. Lin Xian followed beside him. The two of them flew over countless mountain peaks and arrived at a verdant valley. There were many palaces and pavilions inside, and there were also array formations flickering in the surroundings. Little junior brother, you'll live in that valley. 7-star chuckled as he rapidly descended. Lin Xian nodded and followed him. The valley below was very ethereal and quiet, very suitable for Lin Xian's current residence. 7-star took out some clothes, some tokens, and other items. He then said, as the Peak Master's disciple, your status is equivalent to an elder's, so you can order around ordinary disciples. As your cultivation increases and you break through to the Almighty Realm, your authority will increase. You'll naturally understand these things once you're familiar with this place. After explaining a few more matters, 7-star left. Lin Xian placed these items to the side. He didn't plan on staying here for long, so he didn't pay too much attention to these matters. Lin Xian had some peace in the following days. That Peak Master seemed to be in seclusion and didn't summon him. 7-star and Qinlan also didn't look for him. They seemed to have forgotten about Lin Xian. Lin Xian didn't care about this at all. He quietly cultivated on normal days and increased his strength. That night he was going to do some scouting. Thus he concealed his aura and transformed into a wisp of nothingness, disappearing from the valley. Then he came to an uninhabited mountain peak and used his heavenly secret divine eyes to look down. Golden Tao patterns surfaced in his golden eyes. They were extremely mysterious, as if they were the eyes of a god overlooking the mortal world. Under Lin Xian's Tianji god eyes, the locations of the experts were all revealed. This was because their qi and blood were like dragons under the heavenly secret divine eyes. In the distance, 7 beams of light circled around. It was like a celestial realm, and it was even more resplendent. Lin Xian knew that it was the core area of the prince's mansion. Looking at that place, Lin Fan's body swayed as he executed Heavenly Dragon's 8 steps and flew towards that place at high speed. Not long after, he arrived nearby. When he got closer, he discovered that the 7 balls of light were similar to dragon balls. They revolved around him, forming a light curtain. Only after entering the palace would one be able to reach the core area of the prince's mansion. But thinking about it, he would definitely attract the attention of those people if he went in. Therefore, Lin Xian sighed and left. It was impossible to sneak in. It seemed that they could only enter the core area of the prince's mansion through normal means. Lin Xian decided to find an opportunity to ask around and see if there was any way to quickly enter this place. On the other side, a mysterious figure also appeared in the valley where Lin Xian lived. That figure was like a ghost. It was very strange. Like lightning, it kept shuttling back and forth in the valley. But soon he frowned, and a trace of doubt appeared in his long and narrow eyes. There's actually no one. The next moment, the black fog on his face dispersed, revealing a chiseled face. It was Second Senior Brother 7-Star. He was not here to assassinate, but he wanted to check if Lin Xian had any other secrets. However, what surprised him was that there was actually no one in the valley. He's just a guy who just arrived. Where can he go? 7-Star frowned and snorted. This guy is indeed very strange. After pondering for a moment, 7-Star disappeared from the valley. Whoosh! Not long after, Lin Xian returned to the valley. But as soon as he entered, the Crimson Dragon sent a voice transmission. Boy, my array has been tampered with. Someone's here. Lin Xian also frowned and was very vigilant. The next moment, his soul power covered the entire valley and found that there was no one inside. Presumably they had left. It seemed that this Jin Jianfeng was not too peaceful either. Lin Xian sneered. No matter who came today, he would not let them off easily since they dared to target him. After 2 days, the valley regained its peace. On this day, several red-crowned cranes flew across the sky. There's actually someone down there. Several handsome young men stood on the red-crowned cranes and exclaimed as they looked down at the valley. What? There's someone? Don't joke around. This is Yinyang Valley. How can someone dare to live here? Aren't they afraid of death? Another person sneered. There really is someone. There's the fluctuation of an array and the aura of spirit power below. Let's go down and see who has the guts to live in this Yinyang Valley. Immediately, they rode their red-crowned cranes and rushed down. That guy down there, hurry up and come out. A cold shout was heard and turned into rolling thunder that rushed down. Down below, in the valley, Lin Xian, who was cultivating, opened his eyes and frowned. The next moment, he swayed his body and appeared in the sky. He looked at the red-crowned cranes in front of him and the 3 or 4 young men standing on them. Lin Xian frowned immediately. Who are you? Oh my, you don't even know who we are. Seems like you're new here? Lad, are you a new disciple of Jin Jianfeng? You're too reckless. How dare you live in this place? I thought you were some powerful figure. I didn't expect you to be a 6-star beginner challenger. You're simply courting death by letting such a person live here. What did you say? Lin Xian frowned. He did not understand what these guys were talking about. What's wrong with this valley? I've lived here for a few days, but I didn't notice anything unusual. Forget it if you don't understand. We don't have any other intentions. We just want to see who's so daring. Now that you've seen it, we'll take our leave. The few young men sneered and rode their red-crowned cranes away quickly. Lin Xian's eyes flickered as he watched them leave. He did not know what they were talking about, but he knew that there was something wrong with this valley. Although he had not discovered the problem yet, these few people's behavior should not be fake. If there was something wrong with this valley, why did they let him stay here? Wait, this valley was arranged by 7-star. Could it be that there's something wrong with this 7-star? Lin Xian sneered when he recalled that someone had secretly come to the valley before. Could it be that this 7-star was a smiling tiger with a knife hidden behind his smile? With that thought, a trace of coldness appeared in Lin Xian's eyes. He secretly became wary of 7-star. Chapter 1994. However, he still decided to stay here for the time being, because he wanted to see what was so special about this valley. It was actually so surprising. In the next few days, there was nothing unusual. But on this day, a full moon hung in the sky like a silver plate, illuminating the entire land. Lin Xian was still cultivating, but at this moment, he suddenly felt something unusual. So in the next moment, he suddenly opened his eyes, because he discovered that all the vitality in the entire valley seemed to be rapidly disappearing. Instead, it was replaced by a cold and incomparably dark aura of death. Boom, boom, boom. Streams of death aura appeared, transforming into ghostly hands that swept towards Lin Xian. Not only that, but headless beasts and powerhouses that had been pierced appeared around him, floating nonstop. Streaks of terrifying afterimages appeared beside him, as if they were malicious ghosts, howling as they pounced towards him. Get lost! Xian roared angrily, and the dragon's sword domain instantly appeared, enveloping him. Then, tens of thousands of sword chi slashed in all directions, sending all of these phantoms flying. At the same time, all of the surrounding death aura was destroyed. However, it was useless. More death aura and phantoms came, wrapping around Lin Xian without any regard for their lives. As for Lin Xian, the great dragon sword soul in his body surged, and the dragon's sword domain emitted light. Then his entire body soared into the sky, transforming into a sharp ray of light. He broke through the endless death aura and left the valley. It was too dangerous. This death aura was very terrifying. Even if a mighty figure was entangled, they would probably be killed. Lin Xian's face was extremely gloomy. Now he finally knew why those young men sneered a few days ago. There was indeed something wrong with this valley. In the sky, looking at the pitch-black valley below, Lin Xian's face was extremely gloomy. He had been schemed against, but why? Could it be that he had revealed some flaws? That shouldn't be the case. This was Zhongzhou, no one knew who he was, and those people from the eastern wasteland wouldn't have chased him here. It wasn't his former enemy, and he didn't show the slightest interest in the nest of 10,000 dragons. In other words, it was a new enemy. But who was it? Su Chun thought about it and realized that only second senior brother, 7-star, was the most suspicious. After some judgment, Lin Xian knew that the person who plotted against him was very likely that second senior brother 7-star. When he thought of this, his expression turned cold. He had no enmity with the other party, but the other party actually plotted against him? This caused Lin Xian's heart to be filled with killing intent. However, now was not the time to make a move. However, Lin Xian decided that as long as he had the chance, he would definitely kill the other party. Looking at the black valley below, the aura of death permeated the air. Lin Xian knew that he could no longer stay in this place. Therefore, with a sway of his body, he landed in a nearby valley. Then he flicked out a few strands of sword chi with his finger and opened up a cave abode. Then he set up a formation and went in to rest. The next day, when the sun rose, the aura of death in the quiet valley disappeared and peace was restored. In the sky, 2 rays of light flew over. They quickly came to the vicinity of the valley and scanned the area. Suddenly, they fixed their eyes on a mountain peak and sneered. "Over there, let's go." After the two rays of light disappeared, they were two young men. Their expressions were cold and arrogant as they quickly arrived in front of a mountain peak. Then, one of them shouted coldly and struck out with his palm. Boom! The spirit chi in the sky gathered and formed a huge palm that covered an area of 100 kilometers. It slammed down fiercely. Boom! If the palm landed, it would definitely flatten the mountain peak. However, when the light palm landed in midair, rays of light suddenly lit up below. Then a formation was formed and blocked the shocking palm. Seeing this scene, the two young men above frowned. The young man in red who attacked sneered. In the next moment he shouted coldly, "Who is it? Get out here." On the mountain peak below, there was a cave abode that was opened up by Lin Xian. In the cave, Lin Xian frowned and slowly opened his eyes. He could naturally sense the situation outside, and his face immediately darkened. When he heard the other party's arrogant voice, his body flashed and instantly disappeared from the cave. In the next moment, he appeared in the air opposite the two young men. "Who are you? How dare you disturb my rest?" Lin Xian asked coldly. He was still in a very bad mood after being ambushed yesterday. He hadn't expected that someone would come looking for trouble the next day at daybreak. Did they really think he was easy to bully? "Who are you, kid? How dare you open up a cave abode here?" However, the young man in red asked coldly. The young man in blue also said, "We're not disturbing your rest. We're enforcing the law." "What enforcing the law?" Lin Xian furrowed his brows when he saw their arrogant and cold attitudes. "What? Can't I open up a cave abode? You don't have the right to open one." The young man in red sneered. "Every inch of land here belongs to Valurium Manor. Only Valurium Manor's people can open up a cave abode. Everyone else can only live here." "Not even Jin Jianfeng's elders?" Lin Xian asked again. "Of course not. That's why you've broken the rules. Come back with us obediently." Lin Xian's face darkened when he heard this. In the next moment, he waved his sleeve and countless boulders surged downwards. The cave abode quickly disappeared. The formation around it turned into rays of light and disappeared into Lin Xian's sleeve. Lin Xian said in a low voice, "Is this enough?" "Humph. Do you think you'll be fine after filling up the cave abode? You've already opened up a cave abode. Of course you've broken the rules. We're going to take you back to the law enforcement hall for punishment. Come back with us obediently, kid. Otherwise, you'll suffer a terrible fate." The two men sneered. The young man in red didn't say anything else. He reached out and grabbed at the space in front of him. An enormous palm of light immediately covered the sky and enveloped Lin Xian. Humph! Lin Xian was infuriated as well. These people were unreasonable and wanted to capture him by force. Moreover, they'd come here so early in the morning. It was obvious that they'd planned this. After all, there were hundreds of thousands of people in Jin Jianfeng. There were countless mountains and lands. Who knew where a newly opened cave abode would be? But these two people had been able to find it so precisely, and when the aura of death had just disappeared from the valley. It was obvious that this was a meticulous plan. Their goal was to capture him. When he thought of this, the cold light in Lin Xian's eyes grew even colder. In the next moment, he waved his hand. A frosty aura filled the air and froze the enormous palm of light in an instant. "You dare defy us, kid?" The young man in red's face darkened. The young man in blue next to him sneered as well. Chapter 1995. Kid, it looks like you don't know what's good for you. No one dares to stop us enforcers from doing our job. Even the elders have to follow us back obediently. How dare you resist? You're dead meat. Dead meat? Lin Xian sneered. Is that so? I don't think so. It's easy if you want to take me back. Just do it, and I'll go back with you. If you can't do it, You two can get the hell out of here." At the end of his words, Lin Xian's body glowed with a sharp light. It transformed into countless rays of sword light that swept in all directions. "You're courting death." The blue-clothed youth was furious. He attacked as well. The blue-clothed youth was also a frost cultivator. Thus, he transformed into a giant ice cage that enveloped Lin Xian. In an instant, countless layers of ice appeared around Lin Xian. They crackled as they formed a giant cage that trapped him. Looking at the ice cage around him, Lin Xian snorted coldly and punched out. Boom! The terrifying fist transformed into a black dragon. It swept out and shattered the ice cage into pieces. Not only that, Lin Xian swung his fist and charged forward. "You're courting death. How dare you attack us? Are you tired of living?" The two youths were enraged when they saw this scene, especially the blue-clothed youth. He didn't expect the other party to break out of his cage so easily. Not only that, the other party even attacked him. The two of them were members of the Valurium Palace's enforcers. Moreover, they were both peak 6th star cultivators. The other party was only an early 6th star cultivator. How dare he attack them? What a fool! However, just as they finished yelling, the black fist came crashing down. The blue-clothed youth stretched out his hand and gathered the power of frost in the air. It formed an ice shield in front of him to defend himself. Crack! Boom! However, it was useless. The giant ice shield was shattered into pieces in an instant. Not only that, the blue-clothed youth was also hit. He was sent flying, spitting out blood. Damn it! How is this possible? How can he be so powerful? The blue-clothed young man wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and his face became extremely ugly. That punch just now had shattered half of the bones in his body. This made him extremely terrified. He had no choice but to take out a large number of spirit medicines from his ring of holding and quickly swallow them. At the same time, he circulated his cultivation method to heal his injuries. "Brat, you dare to hurt me? I'm from the Law Enforcement Hall. Kneel down and accept your death." On the other side, the red-clothed youth was enraged when he saw this. Clang! He drew the red sword from his waist and slashed forward. The red long sword expanded in the wind, transforming into a gigantic flaming sword that was over 1,000 feet long. As the sword slashed down, a wave of air billowed into the sky. Boom! Boom! Faced with such a terrifying flaming greatsword, Lin Xian unleashed his black fist and attacked wildly. In the end, the huge flaming sword was shattered into pieces. How is this possible? The red-clothed youth was extremely shocked. He held the broken red sword in his hand, and his arm was numb. The spiritual power in his body could not circulate smoothly. He was simply too shocked. Who exactly is this person? How can he be so powerful? Isn't he just a beginner 6-star challenger? The two youths looked at each other and saw the fear in each other's eyes. In the next moment, their scalps went numb, and they turned around to flee. Trying to escape? Lin Xian sneered. How could he let these two go? He extended both hands, and 2 streams of sword chi turned into long dragons that rushed in all directions, trapping the 2 youths and pulling them to his side. Sensing the fierce aura, the 2 youths' faces turned extremely pale. What are you trying to do? I'm warning you. We're from the Law Enforcement Hall. If you dare to touch us, you're dead meat. Even if you're the Peak Master's disciple, you'll still be finished if you offend the Law Enforcement Hall. The 2 youths roared crazily and struggled with all their might. You actually know my identity? Lin Xian was shocked. He originally thought that the 2 youths did not know his identity, so they attacked him. However, it seemed that this was not the case. The 2 youths actually knew that he was the Peak Master's disciple and dared to attack him. It seemed that they had something to rely on. At the thought of this, Lin Xian's face darkened. He asked coldly, "Who sent you to deal with me? Also, what's going on in this valley? What secrets does it contain? Don't even think about it." Even though you caught us, don't think that you'll get any information from us." The two youths snorted coldly. Although their faces were pale, their eyes were filled with malice. "Not going to talk?" Lin Xian sneered, reached out his hand, and grabbed the other party's head. Suddenly, a terrifying icy aura poured into the other party's body. The red-clothed youth screamed crazily. The icy aura around his body surged, and a thick layer of frost formed on his body. Cold, it was too cold. It felt as if his soul was about to be frozen. "Are you going to talk or not?" Lin Xian snorted coldly. At this moment, the blue-clothed youth gritted his teeth. "Attack me if you dare." He was also one of the Ice Five, so he was confident that he could resist the ice. However, Lin Xian sneered. "All right, since you asked for it, I'll fulfill your wish." As he said that, his left hand pressed down on the blue-clothed youth's head. In the next moment, endless black flames surged out and enveloped the blue-clothed youth. "Flames? How is this possible? You're not an ice-type warrior. How can you have flames?" The youth screamed crazily. He felt as if his entire body was about to be ignited, and even his soul was about to be burned into nothingness. "Damn it! You're an ice-type and fire-type king." He was terrified because he did not expect the other party's flames to be so powerful. His icy aura was completely useless. "Can you tell me now?" Seeing the two youths on the verge of death, Lin Xian withdrew his hand. The two youths were terrified. They looked at Lin Xian, their bodies trembling. They did not dare to be arrogant anymore and quickly said, "It was your second senior brother, 7-Star, who sent us." It really was him. Hearing this, Lin Xian narrowed his eyes, and a murderous intent appeared in his eyes. His guess was right. It was indeed the second senior brother, 7-Star. Why is he targeting me? Also, what's the matter with the valley below? Lin Xian continued to ask. The valley below is called the Yin-Yang Valley. It's nothing on normal days, but every full moon, it will surge with endless death aura, turning it into a death valley. At that time, even mighty figures would not dare to enter. The red-clothed youth said, "As for why your second senior brother wants to kill you, I think it's because he's jealous of you. After all, having one more person would threaten his future inheritance. Moreover, we heard from him that you seemed to be very extraordinary, which made him very wary." Chapter 1996. Fear? What's going on? Lin Xian was puzzled. He did not display his strength in front of the 7-Star. Why would the other party be afraid of him? One had to know that he was only a 6-Star king on the surface, while the 7-Star king was an almighty. It was a joke for an almighty to be afraid of a 6-Star king. It said that you're very similar to that person from 300 years ago. At this moment, the blue-clothed young man said weakly, "The person from 300 years ago? What's going on? Tell me clearly." Actually, the peak master of Jin Jianfeng has 3 disciples, not 2. There was one before you, but he betrayed us. Betrayed us? Where did he go? Why did he betray us? I don't know why, but that person is very powerful. Back then, he suppressed Senior's sister Qinlan at a young age. The 7-Star second senior brother was no match for him. That person lived in the Yin-Yang Valley back then. Where is he now? Lin Xian asked. He did not expect the peak master of the Golden Sword Peak to have a disciple. That person left long ago. It's said that he joined the Yin-Yang sect. He even became an elder of the Yin-Yang Horn. Joined the Yin-Yang sect? Lin Xian was shocked. If he remembered correctly, the Yin-Yang sect should be a powerful sect in the middle ground. It was very ancient and powerful. It was similar to the sacred grounds in the eastern wilderness. He did not expect Jin Jianfeng to have such a thing. But what did it have to do with him? Why was he similar to the person who joined the Yin-Yang sect? What was the similarity between the two of them? Lin Xian could not figure it out. The two young men did not know either. They looked at Lin Xian and asked in a trembling voice, can you let us go now? Let you go? Sure, but since you dared to provoke me, I'll cut off one of your arms as a warning. Lin Xian's eyes turned into sharp sword qi and slashed at the two of them. Immediately, one of their arms was cut off. The two of them screamed and rolled in the air. Their blood dyed their clothes and the sky red. Get lost. If you dare to provoke me again, I'll kill all of you. As he spoke, Lin Xian waved his sleeve and sent the two flying. In the next moment, he turned into a bolt of lightning and flew toward the valley below. At this moment, Yin Yang Valley had returned to normal. Not only that, but there were also several peculiar purple trees in the valley. Their branches were like long dragons, and they were abnormally dark and thunderous. It was unknown how many years it had existed. At that moment, several black and white fruits were growing on the purple tree. What is this? Lin Xian was surprised because he clearly remembered that just yesterday, these trees did not have these black and white fruits. Could it be that it had something to do with the death aura last night? Thinking of this, he waved his hand and was about to pluck the black and white fruit to study it. Stop! However, at this moment, a delicate shout came from behind. Then a figure streaked across the sky like a red lightning bolt, heading straight for Lin Xian. A sharp aura spread out and turned into a red saber light that slashed down fiercely. Before the saber light could even reach Lin Xian, cracks had already appeared in the sky. Even Lin Xian's clothes were fluttering in the wind. Lin Xian frowned and suddenly turned his head. He realized that the red saber light was coming for him. He immediately snorted coldly. In the next moment, he clapped his hands and directly faced the attack. Boom! A blue ice ball appeared in his palm. Then it collided with the red saber light, making a sonorous sound. The void cracked, and the red saber light was completely frozen. The figure was also knocked back. The light disappeared, and then a figure appeared. It was a woman with a pretty face. However, at that moment, there was an unknown anger in her beautiful eyes as she stared at Lin Xian. Who are you? How dare you stop me? Get lost. The yin yang fruit is not something you can touch. The woman shouted coldly. Yin yang fruit? Hearing that, Lin Xian frowned. Was the black and white fruit called the yin yang fruit? The valley was called the Yin Yang Valley, and it was indeed magical that the yin yang fruit could be produced here. However, what was the use of the fruit? Lin Xian did not know. However, when he thought about it, it should be a treasure. Otherwise, the woman in red would not be so angry. I don't care about the yin yang fruit. From now on, this valley is mine. Therefore, the things inside are naturally mine too. Who are you? Get lost. Lin Xian looked at her and said coldly, What? This valley is yours? The woman in red was stunned when she heard that. Soon it turned into a sneer. Are you kidding me? No one lives in the Yin Yang Valley. It has been ownerless for 300 years. Who are you, kid? Get lost. Otherwise, don't blame me for killing you. Humph. Lin Xian snorted coldly. No one has lived here for 300 years, but from now on, this valley is mine. You're courting death. Seeing Lin Xian's arrogant and domineering words, the woman in red was instantly enraged. In the next moment, she held a long saber in her hand, and a biting cold saber light shot into the sky. She viciously slashed at Lin Xian. At the same time, the woman in red's body swayed and disappeared on the spot. Whoosh! Lin Xian flicked his fingers, and streaks of sword qi surged out to resist the sharp saber light that filled the sky. However, at this moment, the void beside him split open, and the woman in red suddenly appeared. The long saber in her hand viciously slashed at Lin Xian. Clang! Lin Xian's arm was imbued with boundless ice. He slapped the blade with his palm, sending the blade flying. In the next moment, he threw a punch at the woman in red. A violent aura appeared between heaven and earth. Streaks of black dragon tattoos wrapped around his fist and turned into a black dragon that charged forward. The world lost its color, and it was as if only the black dragon was left roaring. When the woman saw this, her body suddenly stiffened, and the spiritual power in her body froze. Her pretty face became extremely pale. This was because she did not expect this young man, who was only at the beginning of the 6-star level, to possess such a powerful fist technique. This fist technique made her body tremble. She wanted to escape, but she realized that her surroundings had been frozen by endless ice. There was no way for her to retreat. Therefore, she could only grit her teeth and resist with all her might. A red light appeared. The woman waved her hand, and a set of bright red armor covered her body. Not only that, but her delicate hands also quickly formed a seal. They gathered in front of her and formed a light screen to resist the black fist. Boom! 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 Everything seemed to be in vain. The red light screen was extremely fragile under the black fist. It was ruthlessly torn apart like a piece of paper. Chapter 1997. After that, the black fist ruthlessly smashed into the red-clothed woman's armor. Immediately, an earth-shattering sound was heard. Ah! The woman screamed in agony as she flew backwards, turning into a streak of red light. Blood trickled from the corner of her mouth. Her body smashed into a mountain peak, causing it to break apart. Junior sister. At this moment, a furious roar came from afar. Soon after, several rainbows appeared in the sky and streaked across the sky like lightning. Buzz, buzz, buzz! The rainbows danced in the air, turning into 3 figures. They came to the woman's side and helped her up. There were 2 men and 1 woman. One of them was a middle-aged man, and the other 2 were a young man and woman. The young woman quickly took out a pill and fed it to the woman in red. The other 2 glared at Lin Xian furiously. "Kid, how dare you hurt my junior sister? I'll kill you." The young man drew his long sword from his waist. The middle-aged man's expression darkened. "Who are you?" he asked coldly. "Get over here and kneel for your death." These people were furious. They'd come to Yinyang Valley to pick the Yinyang fruit. However, they didn't expect that someone would come before them and even injure their junior sister. They wouldn't let this go. "Who am I?" Lin Xian sneered. "And who are you?" "This is where I live. Aren't you afraid of being punished by my residents for causing trouble for no reason?" He knew that those who could come here were all from Valerium Palace. These people were strong, but he'd never seen them before. Presumably, it was not from the Golden Sword Peak. Perhaps it was from the other peaks. It was hard to say, but no matter who they were, Lin Xian wouldn't let them enter Yinyang Valley and cause trouble. "What? Your territory?" The 3 newcomers were stunned when they heard this. The young man snorted. "Are you kidding? Yinyang Valley is ownerless. Since when did it become your territory? Kid, don't lie." The young woman snorted as well. The middle-aged man's expression darkened. "Who are you, kid? You don't look familiar. Jin Jianfeng is new? You dare to be arrogant in front of us?" "And who are you?" Lin Xian asked. "Even we don't know." "Kid, listen carefully. We are the disciples of Tai Yunfeng's 3rd elder. If you know what's good for you, hurry up and get over here to die. Otherwise, if we catch you, we'll definitely let you know the feeling of living a life worse than death." The 3 of them had ice-cold expressions, apart from the injured woman. The middle-aged man among the 3 of them was at the perfection 6 stars realm. As for the other 2, they were both peak 6 stars. When the 3 of them joined forces, it could be said that they were very powerful. Furthermore, in their opinion, the other party was only an elementary 6-star cultivator. Such a person was not even worth mentioning in their eyes. They felt that their junior sister's injury must have been caused by carelessness. How could an early-stage 6-star king realm cultivator possibly injure them? Brat, since you don't want to die obediently, then I can only make a move. The young man stood up. Ka ka ka. A suit of armor appeared around his body, enveloping his entire body. Then he unsheathed the sword at his waist. Whoa! Terrifying sword aura surged, piercing through the clouds and shining brightly. In the end, the long sword slashed down. Instantly, a sword aura that was almost 1,000 feet long descended rapidly from the sky. Kid, go to hell! The young man sneered. Humph! Lin Xian snorted coldly. That's not how you use your sword. That's not how you use your swordsmanship. At the next moment, he slapped his palm toward the sky and collided with the sword aura. Instantly, there was a huge explosion in the sky. The terrifying sword aura that was 1,000 feet long was directly shattered. He can actually block my attack? This kid is much more powerful than he looks. The young man frowned. The middle-aged man also said, Junior brother, be careful. This kid is very strange. He might be able to fight someone of a higher level. Don't worry, senior brother. So what if he can fight someone of a higher level? In front of me, he's still nothing. The young man sneered and was prepared to attack again. However, Lin Xian stretched out his palm. In the center of his palm, a black aura spun rapidly, forming a powerful suction force that shrouded the young man. How can this be? The young man was pulled forward by the powerful suction force. He could not control himself at all. He roared crazily, trying to break the suction force, but he could not do so at all. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the young man arrived in front of Lin Xian. Then his neck was gripped by Lin Xian. His entire body was pressed into the void, unable to move at all. You want me to kneel and wait for my death? Kneel and wait for your death first. Lin Xian kicked out and broke the young man's legs. Then the young man knelt in the air and screamed crazily. Damn it! How can he be so powerful? The young man was in so much pain that his eyes were filled with fear. That was because he could not believe that Lin Xian was too powerful. Senior brother, save me! Hurry up and save me! He did not dare to be arrogant anymore and hurriedly asked the middle-aged man for help. That was because he could not fight against Lin Xian alone. Perhaps only his senior brother could fight against Lin Xian. Kid, you're courting death. Let go of my junior brother. The middle-aged man's face turned gloomy when he saw that. In the next moment, his aura exploded. It was like a mountain that one could only look up to. You're too arrogant. How dare you offend our Iron Cloud Peak? You should know that our Iron Cloud Peak is more powerful than your Golden Sword Peak. If you know what's good for you, let go of my junior brother obediently and hand over the yin-yang fruit. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. You talk too much. Come and save your junior brother personally, if you can. With that, Lin Xian waved his hand and threw the young man to the side. Then, he used the ice cage to control the young man. Kid, since you're courting death, I'll fulfill your wish. In the next moment, the middle-aged man stretched out his right hand. Suddenly, a dazzling golden light appeared in his right hand. Then, a golden spear slowly took shape. Boom! The spear pierced out like a golden lightning bolt, shaking the entire sky. The terrifying golden spear pierced through the void and viciously pierced towards Lin Xian. Boom! 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 The void was pierced full of holes in an instant. The middle-aged man's strength was several times stronger than the young man's. When he attacked, the wind and clouds changed. Complete 6-star Great Circle? Is that what gives you the right to be so arrogant? Lin Xian sneered. He stretched out his hand and grabbed the golden spear. Humph, what an idiot. How dare you grab senior brother's golden spear? In the distance, The two women sneered when they saw that. The middle-aged man laughed wildly. What an idiot. Since that's the case, I'll break your hands first. Chapter 1998. When he said that, the golden spear shone even more brightly. Endless light flickered in all directions. Golden lightning descended from the sky, causing the entire sky to tremble. Buzz! However, in the next moment, the spear stopped. The terrifying scene around them also froze in an instant. Then, the lightning and golden light that filled the sky disappeared without a trace. A large and powerful hand grabbed the golden spearhead. That hand belonged to Lin Xian. It was as if he had grabbed the weak spot of a venomous snake and subdued the golden spear in an instant. Damn it! How is that possible? He can grab my weapon. The middle-aged man's pupils constricted, and his face was full of disbelief. In the next moment, he roared crazily and waved his hands, trying to pull the spear out. Perfect 6-star? That's all there is to it. You don't have the ability to be arrogant in front of me. Lin Xian's voice was cold. He exerted strength in his arms and immediately waved the spear. As for the middle-aged man who was holding the spear, he was also lifted up into the air, dancing non-stop in the air. Boom! Lin Xian waved the spear and smashed it hard on the ground. Immediately, the middle-aged man's body fell to the ground, creating a deep pit. Cracks spread in all directions, and it was extremely terrifying. Ah, I'm going to kill you. The middle-aged man got up from the ground and roared crazily. Endless sacred light erupted from his body. The terrifying aura shattered the void. Boom! However, at that moment, a foot stepped on his head. Immediately, his body that had just gotten up was stepped back down again. Not only that, but his head was also stepped on into the soil. You still want to fight back? Do you have the ability to? Lin Xian sneered disdainfully. The young man who was trapped and the two women in the distance were instantly stunned when they saw that scene. They did not expect their powerful senior brother to have his head stepped on and unable to resist at all. It was really hard for them to believe. Now, do you still dare to have any ideas about the Yinyang fruit? Lin Xian asked coldly. Hearing that, their bodies trembled, and deep fear appeared in their eyes. What kind of joke was that? They would never dare to have any ideas about the Yinyang fruit, even if they were beaten to death. That was because the young man before him was simply too powerful. Moreover, it was very strange. He was clearly only at the early stage of a 6-star martial artist, but his combat power was so strong that even a 6-star martial artist at the consummation stage was no match for him. Could it be that the other party had already reached the almighty level? They were all terrified. No, I wouldn't dare. The middle-aged man struggled to open his mouth and said, We were blind and didn't know that the Yinyang Valley was still young master's territory. Please forgive us, young master. I hope young master won't blame us. The other three also hurriedly apologized. Their bodies began to tremble. Tell me, what is the use of the Yinyang fruit? The Yinyang fruit will bear fruit once a month. However, there are very few of them each time, only 3 to 5. This Yinyang fruit is very magical. It can help you concentrate and train your qi. After consuming it, the soul power and spiritual energy in the body will be refined. If taken over a long period of time, it can even purify one's soul and improve one's physique. It might even give birth to bloodline power. The middle-aged man didn't dare to hold anything back. He explained all the uses of the Yinyang fruit. After Lin Xian heard this, he was greatly surprised. The Yinyang fruit was special. It could only be found in the Yinyang Valley. No other place would have it. Lin Xian didn't know this before, but now it seemed that the Yinyang fruit was very good. Not only could it improve a cultivator's physique, but it could also strengthen one's soul. However, he was very confused. Why didn't Valurium Palace want such a good thing? Why did they leave it here for others to fight over? But soon he understood. There were simply too few of the yin-yang fruit. Although it could improve one's physique and even strengthen one's soul, it needed to be taken over a long period of time. If they only took 3 to 5 fruits each time, who knew how long it would take to gather enough of them? That was why Valurian Palace didn't monopolize the yin-yang fruit. Instead, they let the other 5 peaks benefit. In the past, the 5 great winds would fight over the yin-yang fruit. At the very least, Jin Jianfeng and Tai Yunfeng's men would fight. However, because of Lin Xian's arrival this time, Big Dipper and Qianlong didn't come. However, Tai Yunfeng's men had come. They fought Lin Xian, but the result was a crushing defeat. All right, get out of here. Also, this Yin-Yang Valley is my territory from now on. Don't come here again. Otherwise, I'll break your legs the next time I see you. Lin Xian removed his foot and sent the middle-aged man flying with a kick. In the next moment, he removed the cage of ice and snow. These people immediately fled and disappeared into the sky. The yin-yang fruit was good stuff. Lin Xian entered the valley and plucked 3 yin-yang fruits. He looked at them and saw that there were 2 more. In other words, there were only 5 of them. Without hesitation, he took one and put it into his mouth. The yin-yang fruit was very miraculous. It melted in his mouth, turning into pure yin and yang energy that quickly entered Lin Xian's body. Lin Xian could feel that his physique was quickly absorbing the energy. His soul seemed to have been tempered as well. Soon he opened his eyes. It seemed that there would only be obvious changes after consuming the yin-yang fruit for a long time. If he only ate 1 or 2 of them, there would not be any obvious changes. It would only be a slow increase. However, this was already good enough. At least Lin Xian still needed to stay in the yin-yang valley for a while. He ate another one and then shared the rest with the crimson dragon and the little white monkey. The news that Lin Xian owned the yin-yang valley quickly spread. The people from the 5 peaks were shocked. That was because the yin-yang valley had been without an owner for 300 years. They did not expect to welcome a new owner this time. However, there were also people who were not convinced. After all, the yin-yang valley could bear the yin-yang fruit. Therefore, many people came to the yin-yang valley, but they were all beaten away by Lin Xian. Therefore, after a while, everyone knew that a powerful person had come to live in the yin-yang valley this time. Even those who had attained the great perfection of 6 stars were no match for him. For a time, no one dared to behave atrociously in the yin-yang valley. Lin Xian could be considered to have settled down in the yin-yang valley. On the other side, in Hui Hong's main hall, the black-haired man, 7 Star, had a cold expression. All the Golden Sword Peak disciples thought that 7 Star was a good-natured second senior brother. However, they did not know that 7 Star was a person who hid a knife behind a smile. At this moment, there was no one in the main hall except for 7 Star, so he would not hide anymore. His chiseled face was incomparably cold. Damn guy, he can actually avoid the death aura! How did he do it? To be honest, 7 Star was very surprised, because even he could not resist the death aura in the yin-yang valley. However, the other party was safe and sound. He was extremely shocked. Chapter 1999. Not only that, but the people from the Hall of Law Enforcement had also been sent running. Even a great perfection 6-star cultivator wasn't his match. This shocked 7 Star even more. This was because even though Lin Xian's cultivation was only at the elementary 6-star level, his battle prowess was simply too terrifying. No one below the rank of great expert was his match. 7 Star took a deep breath and tried to calm himself down. Then he began to organize his thoughts. According to the news from the manor, this kid could fight above his level. He could even fight the Mountain Razor General to a draw when his cultivation was suppressed. This meant that he had the strength of a quasi-great expert. But so what? He's just a quasi-great expert. He's not a true great expert. He's nothing compared to me. 7-Star's lips curled into a cold smile. However, he didn't relax his frown. His master was in closed-door cultivation right now, so he hadn't attracted his master's attention. However, the manor will hold a great competition in 2 months. If he shines in the competition, his master and the manor will definitely take notice. What if his master takes a liking to him and imparts him with some real cultivation methods? With that guy's talent, it won't be long before he breaks through and becomes a great expert. At that time, I won't have any advantage. 7-Star's eyes shone with a fierce light. Little junior brother, I won't let you shine in the competition in 2 months. Qianlong is a proud and aloof woman. She probably won't make a move in secret. Moreover, no one in Golden Sword Peak's younger generation is his match. It seems that I should think from the other 4 peaks, and see if I can instigate others to kill him in advance. Even if I can't kill him, I can at least severely injure him. However, the disciples of ordinary elders really aren't his match. Only the disciples of the 5 peak lords can. Lin Xian thought for a while and realized that this Lin Xian really was a monster. No one below the rank of great expert was his match. This drove 7-Star crazy. Kid, it seems that I still need to end you with my own hands. Lin Xian began to cultivate after the others left him alone. But during this time, he learned that there would be a grand competition in Valyria Manor in 2 months. This grand competition was Valyria Manor's test for the 5 peaks. Anyone who performed outstandingly in this grand competition would be chosen by Valyria Manor and nurtured with all their might. It was even possible that he could enter the heart of Valyrian Palace. Upon receiving this news, Lin Xian narrowed his eyes. It seemed that the large competition in 2 months was his only chance. He had to enter the heart of Valyrian Palace and use it as a springboard to enter the heart of the Tai dynasty. Only then could he obtain more information about the nest of 10,000 dragons. I remember that when I received the token, that disciple once said that this token would allow me to obtain some cultivation resources every month. Lin Xian recalled. Then he took out his token and flew off into the distance in a flash. In the distance, immortal mist was faintly discernible. A 7-story pagoda towered into the clouds. Lin Xian arrived at the bottom of the pagoda. Immediately, someone flew up and shouted coldly, "Who goes there?" "I'm Jin Jianfeng's 3rd disciple. I'm here to collect cultivation resources," Lin Xian said in a low voice and took out his token. The guards took the token and examined it carefully. Then they respectfully handed it to Lin Xian and said, "Senior uncle, please." Lin Xian nodded and followed them into the 7-story pagoda. The interior was incomparably spacious. Runes flickered on the walls and floor. It was obvious that this pagoda was unusually sturdy. It was absolutely unafraid of anyone coming to cause trouble. When they arrived at the 3rd floor, the disciple said, "Senior uncle, please enter. Hand over the token, and you'll receive the resources you need." The disciple waited on the side and didn't enter. Lin Xian nodded and pushed open the door alone. After he entered, the stone door behind him slowly closed with a rumbling sound. Although the door was closed, it wasn't dark inside. On the dark walls and ceiling above him were fist-sized, luminous pearls that flickered with light. On the wall in front of him, there were many boxes with titles engraved on them. In front of the wall, there was a huge copper lamp with mysterious runes engraved on it. It was abnormally complicated and dazzling. It had an unfathomable aura. Lin Xian walked forward. However, at that moment, the huge copper lamp in front of him flickered. Then, at the mouth of the lamp, a green mist gushed out and quickly condensed into the appearance of a gigantic spirit. "Halt! State your name." The spirit-gathering spirit said. His voice was like thunder, but it didn't spread out of the room. The runes in the entire room flickered and blocked all auras. "I'm Jin Jianfeng's 3rd disciple," Lin Xian said in a low voice. He didn't say his name. Moreover, the items here weren't collected according to one's name. Instead, they were collected according to their titles. For example, if Qin Lan came to collect, she would be Jin Jianfeng's eldest senior sister. If Jin Jianfeng came to collect, he would be Jin Jianfeng's second senior brother. As for him, he was the third disciple. With that, Lin Xian waved the token in his hand. That cyan jeweling god phantom received the token and then danced towards the back. The token flew out and embedded itself in a box on the wall. Immediately, there was a clicking sound. Jin Jianfeng's third disciple, you haven't collected cultivation resources for 300 years. Are you going to take them all out at once? What? Hearing this, Lin Xian was stunned. Originally, he had just arrived and thought that he could only take a month's worth of cultivation resources. However, he didn't expect that he could take all the resources for 300 years. This was really surprising. Suddenly, he remembered that the gold sword Peak's peak master seemed to have taken in a disciple before. However, he later left and joined the Yinyang sect. That person was probably the third disciple at that time. He was now the third disciple. Moreover, this place only collected resources based on their titles, not their names. Therefore, the things that the previous person hadn't collected for 300 years were all given to Lin Xian. Thinking of this, Lin Xian felt excited. Happiness came too suddenly. He took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, "Take them all out." He couldn't help it. He was really too excited. After hearing this, the spirit condensation god nodded. Then he waved his arm and a storage ring floated in the air. Then it flew toward Lin Xian. All the cultivation resources for the next 300 years are here. Take them. Lin Xian took the storage ring and probed it with his soul power. In the next moment, his pupils shrank. This was because there were 360,000 supreme grade, substandard, divine crystals neatly placed inside. 360,000 pieces, and they were all top grade, subdivine crystals. This was definitely a huge fortune. It was comparable to a divine crystal. Chapter 2000. Lin Xian knew very well how rare it was to have a nerve. It could only be cut out from those wondrous stones. Moreover, it was extremely rare. But now he had obtained a resource similar to a divine crystal. How could he not be excited? In the next moment, he put away the storage ring, retrieved the medallion, and turned to leave. What a pleasant surprise! With these 360,000 substandard divine crystals, Lin Xian believed that he could increase his cultivation again. After obtaining these abundant cultivation resources, Lin Xian immediately returned to the Yinyang Valley and prepared to cultivate in seclusion to increase his cultivation. However, he frowned when he returned to the valley. "Who is it? Why are you sneaking around? Come out." Lin Xian snorted coldly. His voice was as sharp as a sword, bombarding the surroundings. "Hee, brother, your soul power is very sharp." At this moment, a soft chuckle sounded. Then, the void rippled and two figures appeared. "Who are you? What are you hiding here for?" Lin Xian looked ahead and asked coldly. There were two figures in front of him, a man and a woman. The man wore a blue robe and had a handsome face. The woman wore a black dress and an icy expression. "I'm from Blue Haifeng. She's from Black Jade Peak." Blue Haifeng and Black Jade Peak were both part of the 5 Great Peaks. However, Lin Xian didn't know what they were here for. "We're here for no reason. We just want to inform you of something. That is, brother, please give up on the competition in 2 months." "What?" Lin Xian was stunned when he heard this. He didn't expect the two to make such a request. He immediately sneered. "Do you think it's possible for me to give up on the competition?" The competition in 2 months was Lin Xian's opportunity to enter Valurium Palace's core. Even if that wasn't the case, Lin Xian wouldn't listen to them. He wasn't a lamb to be slaughtered. Why waste words with him? Let's just fight, the woman in a black dress said coldly. Her expression was unusually cold. The blue-clothed young man smiled and said, "Brother, we didn't want to target you. It's just that someone doesn't want you to participate. Since you can't be obedient, then don't blame us for being rude." Impolite? How impolite? Lin Xian sneered. The two of them were both at the consummate 6-star Great Circle. The blue-robed man was even stronger, and he was about to step into the realm of almighties. But even so, it was still not enough. Lin Xian did not place these two in his eyes at all. The two of them did not immediately attack Lin Xian. Instead, they took out 2 jade pendants and put them together. Immediately, a dazzling light bloomed, forming countless multicolored lights that rushed into the clouds. In the next moment, 18 large flags appeared in the sky and began to flutter rapidly. Each pole was like a huge mountain, black and oppressive, carrying a heavy aura. "We know that you're powerful and can even kill a consummate 6-star Great Circle. So, we don't plan to fight you at all. We only need to trap you for a few months and let you out after the competition. Go." The woman in black snorted and waved her hand. The 18 large flags in the sky were quickly inserted into the ground below, surrounding the entire valley. Then, the 18 large flags formed an extremely mysterious formation cage that covered the entire Yinyang Valley. With the 18 iron blood flags, that kid will never be able to get out. Not to mention him, even an almighty can be trapped for a year or so. That kid could have provoked anyone, but he provoked that smiling tiger. He's unlucky. Let's go. The two of them chatted for a while. Then their figures swayed and turned into a long rainbow, disappearing into the sky. The 18 large flags below landed on the ground, formed a formation, and then disappeared. Ordinary people could not see it at all, but it formed a mysterious force that shrouded the entire valley. The people in the valley could not get out at all. Humph! Lin Xian stood in the valley and looked around. When he sensed the mysterious aura, he immediately snorted. Needless to say, it was the doing of the 7-star second senior brother again. It seemed that the other party had really put in a lot of effort to suppress him. To think that he would even resort to using a formation to seal the area. However, how could a mere formation seal him? So, in the next moment, Lin Xian clapped his hands, and the blue frost immediately turned into a huge ice palm that slammed forward. Boom, boom, boom. The intense collision caused countless ripples in the sky. However, this time, the ice palm did not break through the void. Instead, it was shattered. Seeing this scene, Lin Xian was surprised. Buzz! In the next moment, he bent his fingers and flicked out a wisp of sword chi that surged forward. Then it expanded with the wind and turned into 100 feet long sword light that slashed down from the sky. Clang! Airwaves rolled and the void cracked, but it did not break the formation formed by the 18 large flags. Interesting. Lin Xian narrowed his eyes. He did not expect the other party to have such a mysterious formation. He would not be able to break it in a short time. However, he was not worried because he had the Crimson Dragon. With the Crimson Dragon's abilities, it would not be a problem to break this kind of formation. Sure enough, when he summoned Ruzelong, the Crimson Dragon said, "Don't worry, kid, I can break it." "That's good." Lin Xian smiled, but then said, "Don't be too fast. If we break the formation now, they will probably attack us again. Why don't I cultivate in seclusion while the formation is still here? We can avoid being disturbed. As long as we break the formation before the tournament begins." Lin Xian smiled. He was originally worried that 7-star would attack him, but now he was trapped by this formation. He thought that the other party would definitely not cause trouble for him again. This made it convenient for him to cultivate in seclusion, other than having the Crimson Dragon remind them during the full moon to avoid those dates of death. Lin Xian had been cultivating in silence. He took out 360,000 supreme-grade, substandard divine crystals, and at the same time, used the dragon sword field to refine them with all his might. The energy of those supreme-grade, substandard divine crystals was completely absorbed by the dragon sword field and focused on Lin Xian's body. In the blink of an eye, 2 months passed. During this period, many newcomers were sent in and assigned to the 5 peaks. The people of the 5 peaks were also excited, regardless of whether they were newcomers or those who had been here for a long time. It did not matter if they were ordinary disciples, disciples of the elders, or even disciples of the peak masters. At this moment, all of them were excited, because the Wang Mansion's tournament was coming. If anyone could stand out in the tournament, they would definitely be noticed by the Wang Mansion and nurtured with all their might. Being noticed by the Wang Mansion was a great opportunity. It was even more desirable than being taken in as a disciple by the peak masters. Chapter 2001. After all, the 5 peaks were only branches of the manor. The entire Valyria manor was incomparably powerful. It wasn't inferior to some of the great sections. Everyone was accumulating strength and cultivating madly, preparing to show off their strength in the competition. Buzz! A 72-level cultivation pagoda suddenly opened, and a cold figure emerged. She was wearing a blue dress and was standing on a blue greatsword. Her face was beautiful, but her eyes were unusually cold. She was the eldest senior sister of Golden Sword, Peak, Qinlan. Although she looked like she was in her 20s, her true age was more than 300 years old. However, compared to those old monsters who were easily thousands of years old, she was still part of the younger generation. Therefore, she was naturally qualified to take part in the Prince's Mansion competition. The same was true for second senior brother 7-star. There were very few people like Lin Xian, who was only 24 or 25 years old, but possessed heaven-defying strength. Every one of them was a peerless genius. Only the holy sons and daughters, as well as the princes and princesses, could do so. Apart from them, the others were all youths who were a few hundred years old. They might be old in the eyes of the common world, but they were very young in the world of cultivation. With the arrival of the competition, not only were the 5 peaks excited, but the entire manor was bustling with activity. This competition wasn't just an internal affair of Valyria Manor. It also invited nearby experts, families, and other factions to spectate. It was a grand event. For one thing, Valyria Manor could show off the strength of their young disciples. Moreover, this was an opportunity for Valyrian Palace to cooperate with the other great factions in the area. Therefore, Valyria Manor attached great importance to the competition. The disciples of the 5 peaks were all mobilized. Apart from registering for the competition, they were also receiving the various experts. The manor had limited manpower, and those who were stronger wouldn't do such a thing. It wasn't appropriate for the weak to be sent out to receive the strong. Therefore, the genius disciples, elders, and disciples of the 5 peaks were all mobilized. Senior Feng, please come in. Greetings, Master Skyfire. My master has missed you. Brother Hong, you're early. Laughter rang out as Valyria Manor's disciples welcomed the various experts and geniuses. Among them, even 7-star and Qinlan were sent out. Whoa! In the sky, a rainbow streaked across. Then, the light dissipated and a child appeared. The child was not even half a meter tall, but he had a big head and a beard. His face was no different from a middle-aged man's. This strange scene caused the surrounding disciples to be slightly stunned. However, 7-star's eyelids were twitching wildly. He quickly walked up and said respectfully, "Greetings, esteemed master." He didn't dare to be careless at all because the short middle-aged man in front of him was extremely terrifying. Even though they were both almighties, the other party's strength far surpassed his. He had reached an unfathomable realm. Moreover, he had a bad temper because he was a natural dwarf. Unlike the dwarfs in the normal world, this was a race. Therefore, even if this middle-aged man cultivated to the level of a powerful being, he would still be short and couldn't change his size. However, his temper was extremely violent. If anyone dared to speak rudely to him, he would definitely torture them to death in an extremely cruel manner. Therefore, Seven Star didn't dare to be careless in front of such a person. Not only Seven Stars, but Qianlan also met a big shot. Clouds roiled in the sky as an old man slowly descended on a white cloud. The old man was tall and big, with a hooked nose and piercing eyes. However, his arms were missing. His empty sleeves fluttered in the wind. The demiurge crippled master. This was also an extremely terrifying almighty. Even with Qianlan's arrogant personality, he still squeezed out a smile and treated this seriously. What a beautiful child. I remember you. You should be one of Jin Jianfeng's men. The demiurge crippled master looked at Qianlan, his eyes quickly roaming over her body. Qianlan froze when she was enveloped by his gaze. Intense anger rose in her heart. However, she didn't dare show it on her face. She couldn't beat the man in front of her. Moreover, this was a critical moment. She couldn't make a move. Therefore, she welcomed the crippled old man with a smile and invited him inside. Qianlan and Seven Star weren't the only ones. Genius disciples from all directions welcomed the experts into Valurium Manor. This was a grand occasion. Congratulations came from all directions. Valurium Manor was currently open to all but the most central areas of the manor for the guests to enjoy and enjoy. There were also places to live. Mountains, pavilions, terraces, and towers sparkled with light. These were all places for people to live. Spirit beasts danced in the air around them. Mountains and rivers were places for people to enjoy. More and more people arrived. Finally, Valurium Manor welcomed the official start of the grand competition. The weather was clear and sunny. There were no clouds in the sky for thousands of miles. Valurium Manor was bathed in multicolored light. An enormous mountain peak floated in the sky. The magnificent sight was admired by tens of thousands of people. The mountain peak was enormous. However, it didn't have a peak. Someone had sliced it open in the middle with a sword, creating a vast expanse of flat land. There were exquisite palaces and pavilions on the flat land. There were even springs and waterfalls above. All kinds of spirit beasts ran about. This place was called the Immortals' Advent Terrace. It was the most important place in the grand competition. It was also where King Valurium would appear. Apart from King Valurium, the most important people of Valurium Manor would also appear here. Apart from them, very few of those who came to pay homage were qualified to come here. Anyone who could ascend to the Immortals' Advent Terrace was an earth-shattering figure. However, there weren't too many of them. There were no more than 100 of them. There were also 5 floating mountains around the Immortals' Advent Terrace. They had also been sliced in the middle, revealing a vast expanse of flat land. These were the 5 viewing platforms of a lower grade. This was in comparison to the Immortals' Advent Terrace. Those who could come to the 5 Great Beer Temples were no ordinary people. After all, other than the 5 great spiritual altars, there were countless other viewing spots that were prepared for other people. Although Venerable Master Tiancan and the dwarf boy were feared by Qianlan and Seven Star, they couldn't ascend to the Immortals' Advent Terrace. They could only sit on these 5 platforms. Those people took their seats, one by one. No one dared to disturb them, and no one dared to forcibly occupy a good place. It would be too humiliating to be beaten down in front of so many people. While Valurium Manor was bustling with activity, Jin Jianfeng and Yinyang Valley were also undergoing unusual changes. Chapter 2002. There weren't many people in the vicinity of Yinyang Valley, not even birds or beasts. No one dared to come here because of the presence of death. At this moment, Yin Valley was unusually calm. However, it did not take long for the void to start boiling. It was as though it was boiling water, making loud splashing sounds. In the valley, there was an extremely handsome young man who was sitting cross-legged. His hands were constantly changing mysterious seals. He opened his eyes in the next moment. Sword light, several meters, long tore through the air. His aura suddenly erupted, rushing in all directions with the force of an avalanche. Winds howled within the valley as lightning fell. It was as if the end of the world was imminent. Whoosh! A long howl turned into rolling thunderclouds. The young man stood up, his aura rising steadily. He finally reached mid-6 Star King realm from early 6 Star King realm. At the same time, the 360,000 supreme, grade, subdivine crystals behind the young man shattered and turned into ashes in an instant. This young man was Lin Xian. Lin Xian smiled as he looked at the 360,000 pieces of subgrade divine crystals that had turned into ashes behind him. After 2 months of absorption, he'd broken through to mid-6 Star King realm. His strength had also increased once again. He looked up into the distance. Endless light shone in the distance, as if a celestial palace had opened. It was about time for the competition to begin. He said, "Rusalong, it's time. Let's do it." I'm ready." The Crimson Dragon had deciphered most of the 18 flags of iron and blood over the past 2 months. Only the last step remained. When he heard Lin Xian's command, he waved his dragon claw. Several mysterious runes appeared and floated in the air. A crack appeared in the next moment. "Let's go." Lin Xian and the Crimson Dragon left the crack in a flash. He turned into a ray of sword light and flew towards the endless light in the distance. Valurium Palace was unusually lively at this moment. Voices and laughter could be heard from time to time. The Immortals' Advent platform at the center shone so brightly that one could only look up at it. The 5 spirit platforms around it were even more lively. On one of the golden spiritual altars, there were many experts here, including Jean Jianfeng's eldest senior sister Qinlan and second senior brother Big Dipper. Other than the 2 of them, the 9 elders of the Golden Sword Peak were also present. Other than that, there were also other experts who had come to congratulate him. Their eldest martial sister Qinlan had an ice-cold personality. Thus, she would not agree too much in this sort of situation. The younger generation was naturally left to second senior brother 7 Star. As for the elders of the older generation, they were received by the great elder. At this moment, second senior brother 7 Star stood up and smiled. "Seniors, fellow Taoists, 7 Star salutes everyone." "Well said, well said." The older ones all laughed. As for those martial artists of the same age, they stood up one after another. The group of people drank. At this moment, a hurried sound of something breaking through the air came from afar. Then, a sharp sword light pierced through the clouds and flew toward them quickly. The sword chi was sharp and very eye-catching. Therefore, everyone on the golden spiritual platform looked up at the sky at once. What a sharp sword chi! The elders and experts were all astonished, and the younger generation exclaimed in shock. Who would come at this time? Second senior brother 7 Star's face darkened when he turned to look at the sword chi. He even spilled some of the wine in his hand because he discovered that the sword chi was actually released by Lin Xian. Damn it, how is this possible? Wasn't that guy trapped by the 18 iron blood flags? How could he come out? 7 Star was extremely surprised because he had already sent people to use the 18 iron blood flags to trap the other party. That kind of array formation was extremely terrifying. Even an almighty would not be able to come out without a year or so. But now, the other party actually came out. How did he do it? Could it be that someone helped him? But after thinking about it, 7 Star discovered that unless an almighty level array master made a move, no one could break it open. Even then, the commotion would be very big. With his means, he could quickly obtain news. However, he did not receive any news at all. This made him even more puzzled. Damn it, this brat's aura has become tyrannical again. What shocked Seven Star even more was that the other party's cultivation seemed to have broken through and become a mid-stage 6-star monarch. This made his expression very ugly. Off to the side, Qinlan naturally noticed Lin Xian as well. However, her face was still cold and expressionless. Although she was a little repulsed by this new junior brother of hers, she didn't think much of him. A mere 6-star monarch was beneath her notice. Therefore, she would not secretly attack him. However, when she saw 7 Star's expression, she knew that he must have attacked the other party. Moreover, the other party had successfully escaped. Qinlan's lips curved into a cold smile when she thought of this. Damn it, we can't let him in. 7 Star's expression darkened, a trace of iciness appearing in his eyes. In the next moment, he put down his wine cup and waved his sleeve. He shouted coldly, "Who dares trespass on Valuria Manor? Today is a grand occasion for the manor. Trespassers will be killed without mercy." He roared angrily, a biting cold killing intent radiating from his body. He wanted to kill the other party before they could make a move, to prevent future trouble. Otherwise, the things he had done would be exposed. If his master found out, he would be severely punished. Therefore, 7 Star attacked without any hesitation. With a wave of his hand, a blue pagoda quickly flew out. It expanded in the sky like a star and enveloped the sword light. 7 Star Pagoda. The crowd cried out in surprise. They didn't expect 7 Star to be so decisive and use his weapon immediately. Who dares trespass on Valuria Manor? Are they not afraid of death? Who knows? Maybe it's a hothead outside who wants to join in the fun. No matter who he is, he's dead meat. 7 Star is a great expert, and he's even used his weapon. That person won't be able to resist at all. In the sky, Lin Xian frowned when he saw the blue pagoda flying towards him. It seemed that 7 Star was the culprit. 7 Star had attacked him as soon as he saw him. He obviously wanted to kill him to silence him. Since the other party had already made up his mind to kill, why should he hold back? He, Lin Xian, wasn't someone who could be trampled on. Therefore, Lin Xian snorted coldly in the next moment. He didn't face the pagoda head-on. Instead, his figure flickered as he used Empyrean Dragon's 8 steps. He turned into a streak of light and rushed out of the 7 Star pagoda's range. Boom! The 7 Star pagoda missed its target and shattered the void. The people on the Jinling platform below were extremely surprised. What? He actually dodged it? How is that possible? Could he be a great expert? That person was so fast. Exclamations of surprise rang out. They thought that no matter who the other party was, they would be dead for sure. But now it was beyond their expectations. Chapter 2003. The other party had actually dodged it so easily, which really surprised them. 7 Star was even more surprised. His pupils constricted, and he pushed the 7 Star pagoda in the sky, wanting to attack again. Buzz! However, he still underestimated Lin Xian's speed. Lin Xian's figure flashed, and he instantly appeared on Jinling platform. His black hair fluttered, and his red robes fluttered in the wind. His gaze was like lightning, turning into a sharp blade. Lin Xian shouted coldly, "Despicable villain, plotting against me time and time again. Do you really think I don't dare to kill you? What? It's actually a young man." Everyone looked at Lin Xian and exclaimed in shock. The powerhouses who came to congratulate were all puzzled. Who is this person? So domineering. He even dares to threaten 7 Star. Meanwhile, Jin Jianfeng's elders were all stunned. They recognized Lin Xian. Wasn't he accepted as the Peak Master's third disciple? Why was he constantly in conflict with Seven Star? At this moment, the first elder also stood up and said coldly, Lin Xian, today is an important day for the monarch residence. Don't mess around. Mess around? Lin Xian sneered. Sure, make this fellow kneel and kowtow to me an apology and I won't mess around. What? Everyone's eyelids twitched wildly. Make second senior brother Seven Star kneel and apologize? How was that possible? That was Seven Star, the Peak Master's disciple. His status was equivalent to an elder. Moreover, Seven Star was an almighty and could be said to have a noble status. How could he kneel to a 6-star monarch? Seven Star's face also darkened when he heard that, and thick killing intent surfaced in his eyes. First elder snorted coldly. What nonsense are you talking about? That's your senior brother. My senior brother? Are you sure he's my senior brother? Do you know what he did to me? Lin Xian sneered. Do you know that my senior brother tried to assassinate me more than once in order to protect his status? If I wasn't strong enough, I probably would have been killed by now. Assassination. Hearing this, everyone was even more shocked. Not to mention the people from the Golden Sword Peak. The experts from the outside world were even more surprised. But very quickly, their lips curled up and they looked like they were watching a good show. This was originally Jin Jian Peak's matter. So what did it have to do with them? However, with such a show to watch today, their trip was not in vain. Nonsense. Seven Star also roared. He would never admit to something like this. Little junior brother, I don't know why you are framing me like this. But today is the day of the prince's mansion. Don't let the outsiders see you as a joke. You won't be able to bear the blame of the Wang mansion and master. So you'd better go back home and reflect on your mistakes. What? You dare to do it, but don't dare to admit it? Lin Xian sneered. You're really a coward. Someone like you wants to take over the Peak Lord's position? How laughable. You're courting death. Seven Star's face was extremely gloomy. No one had ever dared to mock him like this. And this brat in front of him was actually so reckless. If today wasn't the important day of the prince's mansion, he dared to guarantee that this brat would have died a few hundred times already. Enough. First elder also roared, Brat, hurry up and go back. Don't behave atrociously here. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Impolite? How are you going to be impolite? Try being impolite. Lin Xian did not back down. He took a step forward, and the aura on his body suddenly erupted. Instantly, a terrifying blast of air surged out in all directions. Whoosh! Feeling this sharp aura, everyone exclaimed in shock. The younger disciples even revealed horrified expressions. As for the older experts, their brows were tightly knitted together. They did not expect that although this young man in front of them only had the cultivation of a 6-star intermediate rank king, the aura he emitted was truly too terrifying. If you don't give me an explanation today, I won't let this go. Lin Xian said coldly. He was truly too furious. If he did not kill the 7-star today, his cultivation and strength would be in vain. Stubborn. In that case, don't blame me for being impolite. First Elder's voice was icy cold, and he was about to make a move. However, at this moment, a red-robed elder stepped forward. He was the 8th elder. The 8th elder said, Big brother, there's no need for you to make a move. I'll capture this brat. He sneered. He and Lin Xian originally had some enmity. Lin Xian was accepted as the Peak Master's disciple, which made him somewhat nervous. Moreover, he could not take revenge on the hatred in his heart. After all, after becoming the Peak Master's disciple, his status was equivalent to theirs. However, it was different now. This brat actually dared to openly cause trouble on such an important day of the prince's mansion. he would definitely be severely punished. Moreover, the brat was unwilling to stop now. It was the best time to kill him. Therefore, Eighth Elder decided to personally make a move and kill him. Even if the other party really died, the Peak Master and the Prince's Mansion would probably not blame him. Instead, they would reward him greatly. Therefore, he stepped forward without hesitation. Brat, you really don't know what's good for you. Isn't being your third disciple quite carefree and happy? You actually came here to behave atrociously? Since you're courting death, then don't blame me. Eighth Elder sneered, and endless flames appeared on his body. Seven Star also laughed when he saw Eighth Elder make a move. He naturally knew that Eighth Elder and Lin Xian had a feud. Presumably, Eighth Elder would definitely not show mercy when he made a move. Moreover, Eighth Elder was also a mighty figure. Dealing with a 6-star monarch was absolutely a piece of cake. This way, he could get rid of a potential enemy without having to make a move. Why not? Old thing, I gave you face last time and didn't make a move on you. I didn't expect you to be so reckless. You still dare to find trouble with me now? Since that's the case, then there's no need for you to live. Lin Xian stared at Eighth Elder, his eyes filled with murderous intent. Eighth Elder actually jumped out at this time and wanted to kill him? How could he let him go? You're courting death. Eighth Elder roared furiously, and his red palm shot out rapidly. Flaming Divine Palm. A terrifying flame aura soared into the sky, and a terrifying heat wave swept out in all directions. 2 large red palm prints of light dyed the entire sky red. They ruthlessly slammed toward Lin Xian. At this moment, it was as if the god of fire had descended. It was incomparably powerful. Buzz! Lin Xian snorted coldly, and frost surged on his body. Instantly, a blue fist shot into the sky. The terrifying frost aura was piercingly cold, and it instantly formed a layer of frost on the entire spiritual platform. Even the surrounding martial artists were covered in a layer of blue ice shards. What a terrifying frost aura! I wonder who will win. What a joke! Eighth Elder is a mighty figure. Isn't it easy to deal with a 6-star monarch? Eighth Elder also sneered disdainfully. He had long known that Lin Xian was an ice attribute martial artist, and he immediately sneered. Brat, you want to compare with me with this frost aura of yours? Go to hell. You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.